بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين ولا عاقبة للمتقين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على عبدك ورسولك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. So I apologize for all the time that it took getting set up. For those of you that are joining online, we prayed Salat al-Dhuhr at 1 o'clock. So it took us a little bit of time after Salat al-Dhuhr to get set up. We apologize for the technical difficulties. But if you're going to have a baby, you need to be a little bit more patient than that. So if you're going to wait 20 minutes or so, then you need to be able to wait much longer, inshallah. But anyway, so just to introduce this topic, alhamdulillah, I'm extremely excited about it, and I have enough material to go until Maghrib time, so I'm going to try to cover as much of it as I can, inshallah, in the short time that we have. But it's a topic that I know that many people would, love to see addressed, and the testimony to that is that we planned this event on Wednesday. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we have over 1,300 viewers online, alhamdulillah. So obviously it's a topic that doesn't get addressed much. And I know that, personally, whenever, I know a family that just had a baby, I can expect like 20 text messages of questions on the first day. So alhamdulillah, this is, I'm really excited about doing this class. Inshallah ta'ala, I hope it'll be beneficial, and it's something that everyone will have to go through in some way at some point in their lives. So even if you yourself are not expecting any children, at least it's good to have this knowledge so that you can coach other people who might be in that same situation, and just having, knowledge of this situation is very good. Now, we have two aspects of this. Traditionally when the ulama, talked about anything of fiqh, they also included tazkiyah. A lot of times when we talk about fiqh now, it's just halal, haram, sunnah, that's it. We just give al-ahkam al-taklifiyya, we give the ruling on it, and then we just move on. But I really wanted to introduce this topic with a lot much more than that. So before we even get to the fiqh aspects, there will be a lot of halal and haram and sunnah and taking notes and so on and so forth. But before that, just talking about this topic as a whole, we have to remember that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he encouraged us to have children. So having children is a sunnah. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, have as many children as you can, for I will be proud of your number on the Day of Judgment. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will boast about the number of Muslims on the Day of Judgment. Now obviously, this ummah is the largest ummah of believers on the Day of Judgment. Out of all of the nations of the Prophets, this ummah will be the largest of them all. And Rasulullah ﷺ encouraged us, and the Prophet ﷺ talked about being proud of us on the Day of Judgment, the number that we have. Obviously, from the individual perspective, from the virtues of having children, is that it is the greatest investment that you can make. As we know, the Messenger ﷺ, he said to a person, a son, when he was referring to his father, the son was asking the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what belongs to my parents? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Anta wa maluka li abik, al-waladu kasbu abi." You and what you've earned belong to your father, and obviously to both of your parents, but it was in the context of the father at that moment. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the child is the earning of his parent. Right? Subhanallah, you work so hard, you toil to raise this child. And because of that, everything that child does goes to your record. And in fact, all of the actions that the Prophet ﷺ continue after we die, being sadaqah jariyah, a continuous charity, a righteous child to make dua for us, or a beneficial knowledge, all of them are found within a child. Because for the most part, who's going to make dua for you consistently other than your child? Who's going to give charity on your behalf consistently other than your child? Who's going to spread your beneficial knowledge consistently other than your child? So it's really, it's a worthy investment. And not only that, but An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he comments on this beautiful hadith. He says that not only is this limited to the child, but to the entire offspring. Right? So can you imagine that our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, if they were Muslim, and they taught their children how to pray, who taught their children how to pray, who taught their children how to pray, and who taught them La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and the importance of being Muslim, there could be someone that passed away hundreds of years ago that's benefiting from you being here right now, for being in a gathering of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the investment continues for a long line, and we continue to be a part of the legacy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is part of the good deeds of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Ismail alayhi salam so much. Imagine him and his brother Ishaq alayhi salam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Allah has chosen from the children of Ibrahim, Ismail. Right? Ismail has a higher level than Ishaq. But if you look under Ishaq, you have so many prophets. All of the prophets of Bani Israel. Because Yaqub alayhi salam is the son of Ishaq. You have the 12 sons of Yaqub, and you have all of the 12 tribes of Israel, and all of the prophets that came from that. And with Ismail alayhi salam, you have this long line going just to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a continuous legacy. So when you invest in something like this, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, it's something that will benefit you, not just with your children, but inshallah ta'ala with your grandchildren and their children and so on, so forth. So there's the investment aspect of it, and there's also the aspect of struggle. As Muslims, we like to struggle for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards struggle. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards pain. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He talks about the mother in particular. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ حَمَلَتْهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. Allah describes labor pains. Allah describes the pain at the time of delivery. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the way that the mother would scream, whenever she's delivering. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expressing this to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unaware of your struggle. And the struggle of the parents as a whole, obviously. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that there is no form of anxiety, no form of distress, no form of harm, no form of disease, except that when the believer is struck by it, it expiates a sin. It takes away his sins. So it purifies us. And we know from the famous hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and some say it's marfu' to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked by a man who carried his mother on his back throughout Hajj. Back in those days, before you had the cooling tiles, before you had all of, the things that are sprinkling, moisture and things of that sort, before you had all of that, and the 5-star hotels that are around, the Kaaba that look like Gotham City, before all of that happened, he was carrying his mother on his back with his feet burning, in the heat throughout the entire manasik of Hajj. And he asks, have I repaid her? Have I given her, have I given her due? And the answer was, وَلَا بِطَلْقَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. Not even with one cry at the time of labor. You haven't even repaid her for that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who compensates the believer on the Day of Judgment. So there's, from that aspect also. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam particularly talking about a woman in her time of pregnancy. Now brothers, we're going to also talk about brothers also, but particularly the mother, because the mother struggles the most. There's an authentic hadith from Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-mar'atu min hamliha ila wiladiha ila fitamiha, that verily a woman from her pregnancy to the time of her delivery to the time of her weaning, fi halati jihadin fi sabilillah. She is in a state of jihad fi sabilillah. She is a soldier for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout that entire process. Throughout that entire process. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a woman dies before labor, and this is an authentic hadith in Ahmad, if a woman dies before labor, during labor, or during the nifas, she would have died shaheed, she would have died a martyr. And her child will drag her to paradise even by the umbilical cord. She will enter Jannah, she would die a martyr. SubhanAllah, so that's an amazing situation to be in. Obviously it's one that requires much effort and much struggle, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is surely not unaware. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also expressed that. Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah also said something very beautiful and interesting. He said that, and our companions, meaning the scholars, they all used to say that a woman's dua is mustajab at this time, is accepted at this time. Because with the greater struggle, the more the dua is accepted, the closer that person is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they struggle. Then there is the reward of sacrificing for your children. Right? We all make sacrifices for our children, brother and sister. Just listen to this beautiful hadith from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha in Sahih Muslim. where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says that a poor woman came to me with her 2 daughters, and I gave her 3 dates, and she gave each of them a date, and she was about to eat the 3rd one. And then when one of her daughters asked for it, she took that date and she divided it into 2 and she gave it to her 2 daughters. So she went hungry while her daughters ate. Now, how many times did we sacrifice for our children? You know, there was something that we wanted to do, there was something that we wanted to eat, but as soon as our children put their eyes on it, that was it. Right? It belonged to them. And so Aisha radiallahu anha, she was amazed by this. So she told Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about what she saw. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, حَقَّتْ لَهَا الْجَنَّةِ بِهَذِهِ التَّمْرَةِ. Jannah became her right. SubhanAllah, just as the food was the right of the child when the child looked at the food, Jannah became her right because of that date, because of that one date. So even the sacrifices that you make for your children on a daily basis, especially when they're at a younger age, you know, the happiness that you would forego sometimes. You know, the time that you would rather spend in something else, but the time you sacrifice for them. Don't think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unaware from that. And that's whether the child is righteous or not. Notice Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't talk about whether these 2 daughters grow up to be, you know, pious Muslims or things of that sort. That's just the sacrifice that every parent will make. Now, if they are righteous, then it goes even further. Right? If they are righteous, then it goes even further, because then they're your continuous investment. As we said, everything you taught them, the salah that you taught them, it's like someone is praying. It's like someone is praying for you every single time. Right? You are getting the reward of that. Every time they say the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any ibadah, it is your reward. And it benefits you after death, all the way through, you know, for your grandchildren and so on and so forth. Now, the point here is that at what point do you start trying to make your children righteous? And that's the issue here. Now, there is a reward whether you raise your children righteous or not. From the very beginning, the sacrifices you make as parents, there is a reward for that. But at what point do you start caring about the righteousness of your children? That's really something that I wanted to start out with, to introduce this topic in the first place, because that's the point of all this. Learning the sunnahs and things of that sort, and learning the fiqh. All of this is to do things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to have the maximum blessing from this effort and from what we go through. And a lot of times people, again, they wait until their children grow up to start worrying about their righteousness, right? And then take him to a shaykh and hope he'll give him the Holy Spirit. You know, put his hand on his head, and then all of a sudden he'll start loving salah, and he'll start loving the masjid, and, you know, she'll want to wear, not just hijab, she'll want to wear niqab, you know, because she got the Holy Spirit one time, you know, one meeting, and alhamdulillah, it's all over. And that's such a wrong way of thinking. You know, obviously, it doesn't make sense. And as much as it doesn't make sense, you know, I've said this in conventions with thousands of people. I made that remark, and some of the parents are laughing, and I'm like, you're guilty of this, you know. I can see you right now. I know what your kids do, you know. You're guilty of this right now. So it's, although, you know, it's illogical and it doesn't make sense, unfortunately, some people only react when it comes back to hit them in the face. You know? Whenever they see the consequences of their actions. Some people are not proactive, some people are reactive. They wait until their children grow up and their children are telling them to, saying bad words to them and telling them to go away, and shutting the door on them and not giving them the time of day, and then questioning Islam and so on and so forth. That's when some parents are like, wow, what have I done with my life? We should not wait for that time. And, you know, there's a lot of perspective on the hadith, for example, where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to raise your children on salah at 7. Make sure your kids are praying at 7. Not just 1 or 2 prayers a day. Make sure that they're praying the 5 daily prayers at 7. Fajr counts 2, even on the weekends. At 7 years old, your children should be praying. And Rasulullah ﷺ said what? And at the age of 10, then you need to discipline them physically. The Prophet ﷺ was not telling the Sahaba, you know, if your kids aren't praying at 10 years old, go smack them around. Actually, the perspective of this hadith is that a lot of people react with the hand in the first place, right? They start slapping right away when their kids aren't praying. You know, that's the way that they start disciplining physically from the first place. And what the Messenger ﷺ is teaching us, that if for 3 years, 3 entire years, every single day, you are ensuring that your children are praying just like you, do you really think that would be necessary at the age of 10? No. Okay? So you start early. And how early do you start? When do you start trying to ensure righteous children? When? Before pregnancy. When? Which dua? Before marriage too. Before that too. You try to ensure the righteousness of your children even before marriage. The Prophet ﷺ taught us, or Allah Azza wa Jalla teaches us, Ibrahim alayhi salam's dua. And Rasulullah ﷺ used to make this dua, and he taught us to make this dua. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Oh Allah, grant us from our spouses and our offspring the coolness of our eyes, and make us imams for the muttaqeen, make us leaders of the muttaqeen. So there's that. And you know what else? The way that you treat your parents. That's also a way of ensuring the righteousness of your kids, because what goes around comes around. SubhanAllah, I see some of the things that my daughter does to her, like, I remember making that same joke or pulling that same thing with my parents, and she's just 3 and she's already doing this. Alright, some of the things that my Sunday school kids, before I became Imam, my Sunday school students used to do to me, I would say, I remember playing that same prank when I was in Sunday school. It comes back around. SubhanAllah, it does come back around. So the way that you treat your parents, now obviously there are exceptions to that. But generally speaking, you will see some of it if you look close enough in the way that you treated your parents, that your children will treat you in the same way. Then getting married, choosing the right spouse, like some of you talked about. A man came to Ibrahim al-Adham rahimahullah, 4-month-old baby, bringing him to the greatest sheikh of the time, right? Go ahead, make dua for him, smack him on the head, whatever it is that you have to do, make him a righteous boy. Ibrahim al-Adham said it's too late. So what do you mean it's too late? He said, you should have came to me before you got married. Right? Before you got married. Because the type of spouse that you marry, bismillah, the type of spouse that you marry will have a lot to do with your children. Now, we really underestimate that. And unfortunately, a lot of times, when we're young in particular, we get married for the wrong reasons, or we rush to get married, or we marry the person that excites us most. But we don't realize that this is a contract that you're going to have to deal with. This is the most important decision that you're going to make in your life after your religion. Right? Because it will, subhanAllah, and it's not just a wife, it's a husband too. Having a righteous spouse. When you marry someone who you think is going to be a good father, a good mother, and you think about that before you get married. Right? You can't just always try to patch things up afterwards. So looking for those good characteristics, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah commented on that. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا أَتَاكَ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ. If a person comes to you with good religion and good character, said one of the reasons why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us we should look for character too, is because we should want our children to have good character. So I should see things in my prospective spouse that I would like my children to have. The characteristics, I should want my child to have those same attributes and those same characteristics before I get married. Then what comes after that, after choosing the spouse? Even at the time of intimacy, the Prophet ﷺ taught us a dua. Before being intimate every time, Rasulullah ﷺ said that both of the spouses actually, the husband and the wife, should make dua, Allahumma jannib al-shaytan wa jannibhu ma razaqtana. Oh Allah, put the shaytan aside and put him away from anything that you give us as a result of this, any of our offspring. Right? So again, we have Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaching us, even at that moment you're conscious, you're awake, you're thinking of that. You're thinking of your children. Right? Because the Muslim, the believer, is always proactive. He's always thinking about his future. Right? He knows the more he does now, the more he'll thank himself later. Right? So you're making that dua from the very start. And by the way, so you all know, I'm going to be very explicit, especially when we get into fiqh issues. So please forgive me from now. We're going to have to be explicit with some of these things. Next, after that, it's building a strong foundation. This is where this class really comes in. Building a strong foundation. By taking the steps to ensure all of the sunnah, okay, all of the sunnahs, while you are pregnant, whenever you're delivering, when you're dealing with an infant, when you build that strong foundation, then inshallah ta'ala, you're not going to have a crooked tree to deal with later on. Right? It's a lot more painful to deal with a crooked tree, but if you grow it right from the start, then inshallah ta'ala, it will grow straighter, okay, and it will be easier to deal with. So building that strong foundation. Now, one question that I always get, and subhanAllah, I met someone, actually I met a few people that said this. I don't want to have children because the world is full of fasad, it's full of corruption, and I don't want to have kids and then they grow up to be atheists, or they grow up to be homosexuals, or they grow up to be, whatever it is, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm just not going to have kids. Right? I've met many people like that. Okay, just say, I don't want to have kids because of the amount of fasad in the world. I don't want to bring them in this world because the day of judgment is in like 2 years or something. Right? The world's about to end anyway. Right? And imagine if people had that mentality back then. Now, the reason why I address that issue is because do the sins of the child affect the parents? Do the sins of the child affect the parents? Only if they were responsible for that sin. Only if they failed to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to do. Okay? So for example, salah, your kids don't pray and you taught them how to pray. You did everything at 7, 10, and then, they're 15 years old, or they're grown-ups now, and they don't want to pray anymore. That's none of your business. You still get the reward. And in fact, you would get the reward as if they had prayed, because إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, you had a good intention. Okay? So the scholars, they say that the only thing the parents are responsible for when the child is in the house, and listen closely, actually for all of the members of the household, as-salah wal-awrah, the covering, right? My child needs to be dressed decently. Whenever you get out, if you decide to do whatever you want, that's your business. Now you teach tarbiyah again from the very start. You don't come whenever a child becomes a teenager and try to force these things on them. That's where the problem always arises. Okay? You're proactive with these things. Then if they grow up, then you can say, well, Nuh alayhi salam, some people try, I call it the Nuh card. Some people try to play the Nuh card and they did no tarbiyah whatsoever. And you're saying, well, Nuh alayhi salam had a bad son. You did nothing like Nuh alayhi salam. And you're saying that Nuh alayhi salam had a bad son. Imam Malik had a bad son too. But what effort did Nuh put into his child? And what effort did Imam Malik put into his child? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what effort you put into your child. So at that point, when they grow older and they become baligh and they make their decisions, that is their problem. Okay, it's not your problem. You would not be charged for that. Some also say, well, what if my children grow up and they treat me badly? Right? I put all of this effort into my children, especially we live in a society where the parents are always dumb. Right? Even in the cartoons that you watch, any cartoon that's shown on cable TV today, the parents are the idiots in the cartoon. Right? Go through all of them. Just study them. SubhanAllah. The Simpsons, Family Guy, whatever it is. What's the latest? American Dad. The dad, the mom are always just totally out of it. You're being programmed at that age to know that your parents don't know what they're talking about. So they're not worthy of being honored. SubhanAllah, they're not worthy of being treated that way because your parents are really just unreasonable. You wonder where they get that from. Right? So unfortunately we have to counter that influence. And a lot of times it hurts people when their children treat them bad. I put everything. Sometimes I look at my 3-year-old and I'm serious, I'm talking to her and I'm like, you better not grow up to be a brat. You better not grow up to talk back to me. Because they don't know the love that you put into them, right? They don't know the mercy that you show to them, all the sacrifices that you make. And of course it goes to the hadith that we mentioned earlier, that the believer is not tried by fatigue or illness or anxiety or distress, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Rasulullah said, even a thorn that pricks the believer, even a thorn, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away his sins. But in particular, one hadith should really, make us a little bit more optimistic. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees the huquq of every servant, the rights of every servant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show you mercy on the day of judgment if you are fortunate. He won't hold you to all of those rights. But as far as ibad and ibad, servants and servants, Allah will make sure everyone gets their rights back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure everyone gets their rights back. So when the servant meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, he will compensate them for all of the rights in this dunya that were not fulfilled. So much so that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, حَتَّى يَتَمَنَّى الْعَبْدُ أَنْ يَعُودَ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا لِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمَظْلُومِينَ. So much so that a believer, a servant, would wish to return to this dunya and be transgressed more, have his rights taken more, because when Allah compensates you, it's greater than any compensation given to you in dunya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what you put yourself through, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that investment, even if your children grew up to treat you ill, or your children grew up, not being as pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they should be, not following the sunnah that they should be, in the way that they should, and so on and so forth. Also, even a miscarriage. even a miscarriage is an investment. Even a child that was lost at a young age is an investment. Sahil ibn Handala, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, we all know the famous story of Handala, radiallahu anhu, who claimed that, that he was a hypocrite and went to Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, and so on and so forth. His son was known to not have he could not have children. Okay? From more than one wife. He married more than once and he was unable to have children. And people used to feel sorry for him. And he used to say, don't feel sorry for me that I wasn't able to have any children. He said, the one thing I wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have granted me was a miscarried child. From all of the times I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talk about the rewards of the parents of a miscarried child. SubhanAllah, all the times that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about the reward of a person going through that distress, going through that hardship. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, Inna a'zam al-jaza' ma'azam al-bala. The greatest reward is with the greatest hardship. The greater the hardship, the greater reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that indeed the miscarried fetus will confront his Lord if he enters his parents into fire. And it will be said to him, O fetus which confronts your Lord, enter your parents into paradise. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he will drag his parents into paradise even وَلَوْ بِحَبْلِ السُّرَّةِ, even with the umbilical cord. He will make sure his parents get into paradise. SubhanAllah. That's why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in the hadith of Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that no two Muslims lose 3 children except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause the parents to enter paradise through the favor of His mercy towards them. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, and what about 2? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and 2. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, and what about 1? And he said, even 1. And he said, the miscarried child will certainly drag its mother and father, even with the umbilical cord, into paradise. So subhanAllah, we have so many different ahadith about that. My favorite one, and I just did a video on Quran Weekly actually about the miscarried child, and I went into a little bit more detail. But the hadith in Al-Bukhari, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the angels, hadith Qudsi, when the child is taken away from a servant. So this is a child in infancy. And know that the Prophet ﷺ buried 6 out of 7 of his children. 6 out of 7 of his children. So Rasulullah ﷺ certainly had empathy in this regard. And that's why there were so many ahadith about losing your children at that early age, because of what he went through personally, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it hurt him. He used to cry, right? And Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu saw him crying over his son. And he said, Wa anta ya Rasulullah. He said, you too, O Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This isn't about questioning qadar. This is about just hurt. It hurts to go through that. And in this hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the angels, have you taken the child of my servant? And they say, yes. And he says, have you taken the apple of his eye? Or the apple of his heart in one narration? He said, yes. And what did he do? They say, hamadaka wa starja. He said, alhamdulillah and inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so build him a home and call it Baytul Hamd. In paradise, build him a home and call it the palace of praise, right? Baytul Hamd, the house of praise. And Rasulullah ﷺ says in the hadith from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, مَا لِعَبْدِ الْمُؤْمِنِ عِنْدِي جَزَاء إِذَا قَبَضْتُ صَفِيَّهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الدُّنْيَا ثُمَّ احْتَسَبَ إِلَّا الْجَنَّةِ. That there is no servant of mine, there's no reward for the servant of mine if I take his pure one, his beloved one from him in this dunya, and then he shows patience and perseverance and seeks the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except for Jannah. Okay, except for Jannah. So we have so many different ahadith about that. Now we can start getting to and you know, one question I was asked, well, what if we just can't have children? And you know, subhanAllah, the best answer that I could find was actually the answer of Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala. He said that if a couple is not granted children, but their intention for having children was that they wanted to raise righteous Muslims, then they would have the reward to the extent of their intention. So you imagine if a couple says, you know, inshallah, may Allah grant us, you know, 5, 6 children we can raise to be huffaz of Quran and they can be righteous believers and they can carry on our legacy. And Allah doesn't give them a single one. They get the same reward as people who went through the struggle to the extent of the sincerity of their intention. So Allah Azza wa Jal knows the pain and the suffering of the believer, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we go through, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards accordingly, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now we can start getting into the pregnancy, okay? The virtues of having a boy versus a girl. I just did a video on Quran Weekly on that too, called Cherish Your Daughters. We are very backwards when it comes to son and daughter, even in this society, unfortunately, even in our cultures until now. There's this idea that having a boy is preferred to having a girl. And the first answer to that is it doesn't matter. The first answer is it doesn't matter. And subhanAllah, there's a book, Al-Bukhari narrates in Adab al-Mufrad, from Kathir ibn Ubayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who said that whenever a child was born amongst the women of the Ansar, Aisha would not ask them if it was a boy or a girl, but rather she would ask, is the child healthy? SubhanAllah, she would ask, is the child healthy? And if she was told yes, she would say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. She would praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She wouldn't even ask, is a boy or a girl? That's the wife of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the first answer to that question is it doesn't matter. When you're granted a healthy child, say Alhamdulillah. It shouldn't even be thinking about that. And the other answer to that is that actually in the Sunnah we know that having a daughter is more virtuous than having a son. Okay, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, anyone who is blessed with 2 daughters and he raises them until they reach the age of marriage will be, وَأَحْسَنَ تَرْبِيَتُهُمَا, and he raises them with good tarbiyah. يَكُونُ مَعِي فِي الْجَنَّةِ كَهَاتَيْنِ يَكُونُ صَاحِبِي يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ كَهَاتَيْنِ. He will be on the day of judgment with me like these 2 fingers. And subhanAllah, think about that. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam guaranteeing the same reward that he guarantees for the orphan. And we know even with the mother of Maryam alayhi salam, and you talk about a woman that wasn't able to have children for a long time. And finally, when she became pregnant with Maryam, her husband was Imran. This is Hamna bint Faqud and her husband Imran. And they're so excited and they're happy. And in fact, the people were happy for them because Imran was the imam of this people. And then Imran died while she was pregnant. Imran died while she was pregnant. And she assumed when she made dua to Allah, Allah would give her a boy that would continue the legacy of prophethood. Then, Rabbi inni wada'tuha untha. It's a girl. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wallahu a'lamu bima wada'at. Allah knows what you gave birth to. Allah knows it's a girl. Allah didn't accidentally make it a girl. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. And the girl is not like the boy. You know what's funny? I was listening to someone give a lecture one time. I was listening to a khutbah actually in the Middle East. I was sitting in the khutbah. And the imam was talking about, and by the way, the imams in the Middle East are not always scholars, just letting you know. That's not an understatement at all. And subhanAllah, one time I was listening to him give a khutbah, and he was talking about the virtue of the boy over the girl and the men over the women. The whole khutbah was about why men are better than women. And he says, وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِي الْقُرْآنِ الْكَرِيمِ وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. And Allah says in the Quran, and the boy is not like the girl. And it's like you forgot that was the mother of Maryam saying that. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. But subhanAllah, people were very happy about that, obviously, because there's a bunch of men, right, who were being told that they were better than the women. But Allah Azza wa Jal, instead of just giving her a prophet, Allah could have made Hamna bint Faqud pregnant with Isa alayhi salam. Right? End of story. You have one of Ulul Azmi min al-Rusul, one of the greatest messengers, Al-Masih ibn Maryam, as your child. But instead, Allah gave her the best woman. Inna Allah astafaki wa taharaki wa astafaki ala nisa al-alamin, the best woman of the women of mankind. And then, through her, Allah gave you Isa alayhi salam too. So subhanAllah, the blessings that Allah gave her. So not only does she benefit, not only is Maryam her sadaqah jariyah, but Isa alayhi salam is also her sadaqah jariyah. Right? So we should think in that way. And again, as Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha used to think. Alright, now we're going to get into the fiqh. Let me make a clarification from now. It is absolutely impossible. I have 79 pages of notes that I've hand typed with different madhahib, different opinions. I can't sit here and give you every single opinion on every single issue. So sometimes I won't be able to. I'll try to summarize it and I'll try to paraphrase. Inshallah ta'ala, Imam Nadeem Bashir, our Shaykh, will also be with us inshallah after Salat al-Asr when we do the Q&A. So he'll sit with me. So if there's any difference or thing of that sort, then inshallah ta'ala he can also shed light on that so we can have more than one perspective. So when I talk about fiqh issues, especially some of these are very sensitive issues. Okay, especially the first one, which is the issue of birth control. Right? These are very, very, very sensitive issues. And I actually went through these issues with him to make sure that we're on the same page with them. Alhamdulillah. And the opinions that I present are primarily the opinions of Al-Majma' al-Fiqhiyya, which is the Assembly of Muslim Jurists. of America, which include my teachers also. So I'll present it with that balance, inshallah ta'ala. I hope it's the balanced opinions on these issues when we talk about these things. So the first issue we're going to talk about is the issue of birth control. And again, forgive me because I'll have to be very explicit when we talk about these issues, because it's fiqh and there's no haya when we talk about deen, there's no shyness when we talk about the deen in that regard. So there is no doubt in Islam, first and foremost, the point, there is no in Islam, the more the merrier, right? The more children is the most recommended in Islam. Rasulullah ﷺ encouraged us to have as many children as possible. There's no doubt about that. Okay? Now, there are two types of birth control that we address here. Number one is permanent birth control, and number two is temporary birth control. Permanent birth control is haram by consensus unless there is a serious medical issue. Okay? Unless there is a serious medical issue or there is something that would cause the woman harm for a long period of time. Okay? Permanent birth control is haram. Okay? It would be allowed for a woman in the case where, again, it would only be allowed for a woman in the case where, she would never be able to have kids, or it would be harmful for her to ever have kids. So it would be allowed to do tubal ligation. I think that's when they, that's whenever they keep the woman from ever having children. A vasectomy for a man is always haram. So the man can't opt to do a vasectomy even if it's going to be harmful for his wife to ever be pregnant. Why? Because this is a situation, this is a condition of the mother in that case, not a condition of the man. Allahu a'lam what would happen in the future, right? So a vasectomy would always be haram for the man. It is never permissible. And it would be halal for the woman, again, only in the case where she will always be at risk. All right. Now, temporary birth control is where we have the disagreement. Alhamdulillah, there isn't much disagreement about temporary birth control. There's a hadith from Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu in Sahih Muslim where Jabir radiallahu anhu says, "Kunna nu'azzil wal Qur'anu yanzil," that they used to practice withdrawal. The Sahaba used to practice withdrawal even as the Qur'an was coming down. And the point that he was making is that that was their form of temporary birth control, and it was practiced back then, even in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, even while the Qur'an was being revealed. So that tells us that there is an allowance for temporary birth control with conditions. Now, what's the difference between the two? And Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees a child for you, even if you're using temporary birth control, the child will come anyway. So it's a precaution, but at the same time, it's not a measure that would permanently do anything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could still, and it's funny because no matter the most effective method of birth control still would always say 99%. It would never, no one could claim 100%. Right? There's no way to make that claim. And Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah said, it's a relationship with the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever you take that, whenever you use temporary birth control, you're not saying that I'm not going to have children. You're trying to prevent it for whatever reason. We'll talk about what are valid reasons and legitimate reasons. You're trying to prevent it for those reasons. But if Allah wants to give you a child, Allah will give you a child anyway. And you have to accept that qadr, right? You have to accept that decree from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are conditions to which it is allowed. Number one, it should be by mutual consent. And this is by consensus. It's the right of the husband and it's the right of the wife to have a child. So temporary birth control can only be used by mutual consent. Alright, I've seen situations, in fact Imam Nadim was just mentioning one to me actually, where a husband wants to force his wife to use birth control. You cannot do that. Nor can the wife force the husband. Okay, this is something that has to be done by mutual consent. Number two, it should be medically safe. Medically safe. Okay, so the Sahaba used to practice withdrawal, IUDs, spermicides, all of those types of things. Birth control pills is where the issue of contention comes up. The qarar of the majma', the decision of the majma' was that if it's with the consent of a doctor and it's determined that there is extremely low risk, because in the Sharia and our fiqh, if something is of extremely low risk, then it does not, it's not taken into consideration, then that would be okay. Number three, you should not decide to have no children whatsoever. So the number is flexible. The number is flexible. Okay, but the ulama say to get married and from the very beginning try to say that we never want to have children, that's a problem. limiting the number, spacing, all of that is what the Sahaba used to use it for. Okay, that's the third condition, all right, of temporary birth control. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions around all of these things. Inshallah, at the end we'll take questions. What about the concept of abortion? And Islam is not as black and white as other religions are. And it's funny because, you know, we're usually the extremists with everything, right? Or portrayed to be the extremists and those that are refusing to give up on tradition and things of that sort. And I remember having this discussion in an ethics class in college. And the evangelical Christians were a lot worse than we are on this issue, right? And that's why you have terrorists, and let's use the word terrorist because it's an ideology, people that blow up abortion clinics and stuff like that, right? That's terrorism. Now, in Islam, there are three categories in abortion. There's the first 40 days, there's the first 4 months, and then there's all the way, you know, from 4 months to delivery, after 4 months until the time of delivery. So Islam separates the issue into three different categories. So, for the first 40 days, is the soul in the body or is there no soul in the body yet? In our deen, no soul. So, is life conceived at the time whenever the baby is first formed, whenever the fetus is first formed? Is life conceived at that moment? No, we don't believe that in our deen. So there is no life in the first 40 days. So, having an abortion, I'll talk about circumstances. Number one, it would fall under darura or haja. There are three levels of need in Sharia. There's darura, which is a dire need. There's haja, which is a need, but it's not like something that you can't live without, but it is a necessity, it is a need, but you'd still be able to live. And there's tahsiniyat, which is not a need, it's just comfort. Okay? It's an embellishment. Alright? So, this type of abortion could take place under darura or haja. Darura is a dire need. Darura is there's a threat to the woman's life. The child has some terminal defects, it's not going to go forward. Those are daruriyat, okay? Those are dire needs. And it's a case by case. And anytime you're going to apply a special case, you need to consult with a scholar anyway, right? I'm just giving the basics of it so you can have just the foundation and understanding of the entire topic. But obviously, if anyone's ever put in this situation, then they need to consult, all right? So darura is that. Haja, as we said, is a need. But you could still technically live without it. Alright, so in essence, a darura is only medical. Darura is never social. Darura is never a social need. Darura is purely a medical need. A dire need in this situation is only a purely medical need. A haja could be a social need. Okay, so a haja, for example, would be rape. If a woman was raped, alright, and she conceived as a result of that, she would be allowed, Wallahu ta'ala, that's my opinion, the opinion of many fuqaha, she would be allowed at that point. If the father dies, for example, she becomes widowed, and it's still at the very start, still within the first 40 days, she would be allowed to discontinue that pregnancy, according to many of the fuqaha. So there are many ways of that. Obviously, there's the morning after pill, which is that which blocks fertilization and things of that sort. And there's obviously a traditional way of abortion. The other condition is that it should not be done for fear of poverty. That's the main thing right there. Should not be done out of fear of poverty. That is not a social need, a haja in this regard. Because you don't know where when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends His sustenance, and you're expressing distrust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment. So you cannot just say, I don't want to have a kid right now, it's still 40 days, there's no life anyway, let's get rid of it because we're poor. We can't afford it right now. That's completely not allowed, and that's where the ayah falls in. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. Okay? نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُهُمْ وَإِيَّاكُمْ. We will provide for them, and we provide for you. Right? So you don't know where the risk is. It could be because of those children Allah sends you risk. Right? It could be because of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you sustenance. So that is never a valid need. Okay? Then you have the first 4 months. So 40 days has passed, but you're still in the first 4 months. Life or no life? Is there life in the womb yet? No. No. Rasulullah ﷺ said, at what point does the angel blow the soul into the fetus? When? 4 months. So we're talking about before 4 months. Okay? How many weeks is that, by the way? Just making sure you guys are awake. Okay, good. Alright, so the angel breathes the soul in at 4 months, 16 weeks. So within that time, after 40 days, but still within the 4 months period, An abortion could only take place under darura, dire need. Haja does not apply anymore. A social need does not apply at that point. Okay? Darura is a medical need, a purely medical need. So, a medical deformity, fear of the mother's life or fear of the child's life. Okay? At that point, it would still be allowed. After 4 months, is it ever, the soul is there, right? So is it allowed at that point? Only in one condition, under one condition, and that is if the mother is surely going to die. Because in the Shara', the mother's life takes precedence over the child's life. That is the only situation at that point. And the reason being is at that point it is a full life. Okay, it's a full life. The baby is a full life. The Prophet ﷺ said that if a woman's baby is killed after she's 4 months pregnant, there's qisas. Okay, it's a full life. And also, you know, many of the scholars, and this is the opinion I hold, we can't go into too much detail of that. Many of the scholars say that if the child dies after 4 months, they still have to be named, they should be shrouded, and janazah should be prayed. And even the Imam Nawawi rahimahullah said to do aqiqah somewhere, just give the aqiqah meat somewhere, just to fulfill that sunnah. Okay, so it's a full life at that point. So you don't play with the child's life after 4 months under any need. And Rasulullah ﷺ said that the miscarried fetus should be prayed for. So this is an authentic hadith from Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi from Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah that Rasulullah ﷺ said the miscarried fetus should be prayed for. So you should, and actually by consensus of the scholar, if the baby, so we're talking about miscarriage or abortion here after 4 months, if the baby made a sound, by consensus, name, shrouding, janazah. Okay? If the baby didn't make a sound, then that's where Ahmad and Shafi'i would say that you have to name it, shroud it, it's a full child. Okay, it was a human life at that point. Alright? Any questions about that topic? Yes, brother.
What have we covered or somebody?
Just what I've covered.
So the issue going back to the different contraceptions, right? Like there are a few issues that there, like nowadays there are IUDs. Like for the guarantee from 5 to 10 years,
right?
Something like whether that is allowed for, like let's say have few kids already now they are.
Yes, it is allowed. Okay.
What about also like let's say whoever has like few children, very close in age, and then it's hard to manage to have more pregnancies on. And they all
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, so spacing out again. So we said temporary contraception. That's the question. Temporary contraception, it is completely allowed under the conditions that we mentioned. Spacing, and that's why Jabir radiallahu ta'ala anhu mentioned that the Sahaba used to do it also. And it's very common in the books of fiqh, obviously. When we talk about al-azl in particular, that was their only form of temporary contraception. Was birth control, was that form, was withdrawal. One question from the sisters, then I'll go back to talk. Yeah. But so the morning after pill, we said it could be used within the first what? But legally speaking, from a Shari'i perspective, within the first 4 months. So I understand what you're saying. It's only within 72 hours, but I'm saying the social need might come into play. So if a woman was raped, for example, and so she wants to use that, that's fine. That's allowed. That's fine, because that's fine. So Sheikh Hatim was also, I saw some of the Mashaykh asked that, that's fine. Alright, I'll continue inshallah ta'ala. So I'll take like one question after every section, then we'll have an extended Q&A inshallah. Now we'll talk about some of the fiqhi rules and restrictions for pregnant women. Okay? Getting into pregnant women as a whole. Number one, all blood, and this is just known, all blood is considered istihala. All blood is istihala means other blood, okay, so it's not najasa. All blood is considered istihala unless there's an indication otherwise. Okay? So if it's a miscarriage after 4 months, then it would be considered nifas. Okay? Nifas is again the period. in which the woman would not fast and she would not, not pray, and she would treat that blood like nifas. Okay, she would treat that blood like nifas. And we'll talk about the rulings of nifas. But otherwise, any blood that's seen during the pregnancy is to be considered istihada. It's not to be considered impure or najasa. It's not to be considered impure blood. When it comes to fasting, and this is a very touchy issue, and I hate talking about it, but I have to talk about it. When it comes to fasting, okay, so she has to break her fast if it's going to be harmful to the baby. That's by consensus. If it's known that it's going to be harmful to the baby, then she would have to break her fast. And in fact, it would be more rewarding for her to break her fast. The hadith is by Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i and Ibn Majah, that Rasulullah said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has relieved the traveler of half of the prayer and of the duty to fast. And He has relieved pregnant and nursing mothers of the duty to fast. And this is an authentic hadith. Okay, so the hadith, Rasulullah is comparing the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding woman to the traveler in regards to her fasting, but not in regards to her prayer, obviously, not in regards to the fasl. Now, so the issue here is obviously, at what point do you know if it's harmful to the baby or not harmful to the baby? Because the verdict is really not completely out on this issue. There's a lot of medical research, obviously, that's going on about this issue of fasting. So in essence, the Sharia did not list. So if you read in the books of fiqh, you'll find that there are various opinions on regards to, whether the asl, whether the default is that a woman should fast or that she should not fast. Okay? Whether that's the default ruling. Okay? And there's a lot of variance there, and there's a lot of flexibility also in understanding that. But in essence, the Sharia permits you to break your fast. So while all this medical research is going on and things of that sort, and there has been quite a bit of research to suggest that it's harmful to the baby to fast continuously in Ramadan, then it's better to be responsible with that. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And contrary to popular belief, actually most of the evidence, medical evidence, is showing that, a lot of times people think in the first trimester it's not that harmful. Third trimester would be harmful. Actually, a lot of medical evidence is showing that it's actually more harmful in the first trimester. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm just talking about what I've read in terms of research, and that kids have been shown to have learning disabilities later on in life. So the child might be born very normal. That's just research, obviously, but it's not conclusive evidence. The point that I'm trying to make is it's not as simple as what meets the eye, right? It's not just, well, I'm not that big now, so I can fast now. It's not a big deal. So with that being said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the udhr to the woman. He gave the excuse to the woman to break her fast. So consult with your doctor, okay, ask your doctor, right? And that's the benefit of having a Muslim doctor, because maybe then, for example, fasting alternate days or fasting 2-3 days a week or whatever it is, trying to come up with a plan so that the baby is still getting proper nutrition and things of that sort, then do that, inshallah ta'ala. But consult with your doctor about what to do there. I personally don't recommend it. I'm being very honest with you, I don't recommend it, because and that's just my personal opinion in that regard. Allah gave the excuse. It's up to the person whether they want to take that or not. I feel like it's always better safe than sorry. And we do find examples in the Shara from the Sahabiyat where they missed the entire month of Ramadan while they were pregnant. So if the Sahabiyat took that udhr, if they took that excuse, then there's no reason why we can't say to the sisters, you have that excuse. But she doesn't want to make up a lot of days. She wants to fast 2-3 days a week, space them out, whatever it is, to keep the nutrition going, to not affect the baby, especially if the siyam is in the winter, right? If Ramadan comes in the winter, which is not going to be for a while and the days are short, that's fine. Okay, but the summer days in particular, where you have long days and sometimes very, tasking jobs, and I mean motherhood too, just doing stuff around the house, you're very tired and things of that sort. It's probably better to take that excuse. It's probably better to take that rukhsa in that regard. Alright? Now, as far as making up those fasts is concerned, according to the mu'tamad position, the reliable position of all four madhabs, you would have to make up that fast. Okay? And the reason why I say that is, yes, you can find a qawl from Ibn Abbas, a saying from Ibn Abbas, but still, the four imams agree upon this, in the mu'tamad, the reliable position of all four of the madhabs is that a woman would have to make up that fast and not give fidya in particular. So giving feeding a poor person for missing that fast, although a lot of women will just opt out of making up the fast and just give fidya, that's not the position of the four madhabs. In fact, many of the scholars claimed there was ijma' on this issue. So Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah in al-Mughni, he claimed that there was ijma', there was consensus. And consensus in our deen is a proof. Right? So it's important to be careful with that. Now what does that mean? The pregnant woman is most like a person that is temporarily unable to fast, not a person who is permanently unable to fast. A person who's permanently unable to fast has the option to just give the fidya. Obviously they can't make up the fast. And that's where Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, the ayah which talked about fidya as an option was partially abrogated when Ramadan came, when the command of Ramadan came. Not fully abrogated. Okay? So she is most like a person who's temporarily sick. And a person who's temporarily sick, and as the scholars say, Rasulullah ﷺ compared the pregnant woman to who? In the previous hadith we just mentioned. The traveler. Does a traveler pay fidya, or does a traveler make up their fast? The traveler makes up their fast. So with that being said, she would have to make up those fasts. That can seem very overwhelming. Alright, I understand that. And a woman wanted to throw a shoe at me when I said that last time in the class. She was very upset with me, and she said, we don't need to be hearing from a male scholar about this. I said, I'm sorry. You know, if there's a woman scholar, inshallah, that can give you this lecture in that masjid, then go ahead. I'm sitting down. I don't want to talk about this anymore. But because I understand, it sounds very harsh coming, from me, that you'd have to make up those fasts. But there is rahmah in this regard. There is mercy in this regard. You can take your time making up those fasts. You can make them up gradually. You can space them out throughout the entire year. Fasting while breastfeeding is not nearly as harmful as fasting while pregnant, right? Fasting while breastfeeding, so then you could still do alternate, 2 days a week, for example, 1 day a week while you're breastfeeding. The permission is still there to make up those fasts. It's not meant to punish you, okay, or to overburden you. All right, so you take your time making these up, and even if it passes over the next Ramadan, some of the scholars said you have to give fidya, you have to give expiation. There's no proof for that whatsoever, along with the fast. There's no proof for that. So there's no reason to burden the woman with paying the fidya also. That's for a person who didn't have a legitimate excuse and did not make up the fasts by the next Ramadan. But a woman obviously who is pregnant or breastfeeding has a very legitimate excuse. So you space out your fasting. Obviously you want to try to get them out the way within the next year, 30 days or 29 days. And try to space them out over the next year. You want to try your best to do that, but at the same time, there's no evidence that you'd have to pay a fidya at the same time. Another thing also is you should let someone know, someone from your close kin, how many days you have left to make up. Because Rasulullah ﷺ said in a hadith that's muttafaq alayh, that's agreed upon, that whoever dies and was obligated to fast, let his next of kin make up their fasts for them. The issue of disagreement is can you fast just a sunnah fast and dedicate it to the dead? And my answer to that would be no. And many ulama would say no. But there's this hadith which is agreed upon where Rasulullah ﷺ said if you missed fasts and they were mandatory fasts, then your next of kin should make them up. So let someone know. Let your husband know that, if I die, I'm going to throw these fasts on you. You got to make these fasts up for me. All right? Let someone know so that they can make these fasts up for you. At that point. So don't feel overwhelmed or overburdened by them. Take your time in making up these fasts. But again, in that situation, you're like a person who's temporarily sick, not a person who is permanently ill. Alright? Another thing is that obviously there's a lot of discharge when a woman is pregnant. So how does that affect the wudu? Okay? It's simple. Hadath da'im, which is continuous discharge, a person would have to, you don't have to feel like you have to keep on breaking your prayer. A woman would simply wash herself, clean herself, make wudu, put something to block that discharge and pray her salah and not worry about that. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah and some of the Shafi'is, including Nawawi. Now when I say Imam Ahmad, I follow the Hanbali school of thought. So if I say Imam Ahmad and I'm a proponent of that opinion, don't be offended. It's just, this is the school that I follow in that regard. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah and also Imam al-Nawawi and some of the Shafi'is, they said that a woman can combine prayers also if the discharge becomes excessive. Okay, if it becomes extremely excessive, she can even combine her prayers at that point. The other scholars say she should still pray on time, but she should just continue to keep something there, to keep herself clean, and it's considered hadath da'im, which is continuous discharge at that moment. Also in salah, in prayer, one of the concessions is that when the woman feels excessive pain towards the end of her third trimester, she is allowed to pray sitting down at that point. Okay, so she's been given that permission to pray sitting down. All right. Now the next one is if you go to the doctor, obviously you're going to be told that you need to take prenatal pills, DHA and prenatal pills. Now with that being said, a lot of these pills have gelatin in them. Actually, the vast majority of them have gelatin in them, right? So I actually wanted to make this presentation as comprehensive as possible. So I actually researched pills that don't have gelatin in them. And actually my wife used these, which was Nature Made. There was a brand called Nature Made. If you go to Whole Foods, you get a brand called Nature Made. There is no gelatin in those prenatal pills. Also, alhamdulillah, we have different halal vitamin companies now. I don't know if they have prenatal pills. Noor Vitamins and HNC, you can check if they have halal vitamins, prenatal vitamins in particular. Noor Vitamins and HNC. But if you're looking for a brand, Nature Made does not have gelatin in it, so it's not permissible to use gelatin in that moment. The next thing is the hukum on your doctor, finding a doctor. Alhamdulillah, we live in Dallas here. There's plenty of female doctors, plenty of Muslim women, OBGYNs that can take care of that. But what is the preference, the order of preference there? So the scholars say the order of preference when a person has to expose their awrah for medical reasons, Muslim woman is the first one. And if you can't find a Muslim woman, then who? Then a non-Muslim woman. And if you can't find a non-Muslim woman, then a Muslim man. And if you can't find a Muslim man, then it would be a non-Muslim man. Now obviously you're going to be able to find a non-Muslim woman anywhere. Okay? But I was just mentioning that just so you can have that in your mind, knowing the fiqh ruling on that. The order of exposure of awrah when there's any medical emergency actually for that. Just on that note, any medical emergency, if a person has to expose what is traditionally hijab, that is the order that they would have to follow. Alright? So alhamdulillah, being in Dallas, mashallah, it's a huge blessing. Just having so many options in that regard. Alhamdulillah. The next one, contentious issue, baby showers. I get asked about this all the time. And I'm so hesitant because people get so emotional with the answer. Now, in principle, there is nothing wrong with it. In principle. Don't just put halal next to it right away and say, alright, I'm not going to listen to anything else he says. In principle, there's nothing wrong with it because it's not religious in its nature. There's no tashabbuh because imitation is in things of deen. It's not associated with any religion. And it doesn't compete with Eid. So even the scholars that would say that it's al-Eid tu'ad, that comes every year, it's annual like a birthday or something of that sort. It doesn't compete with the Eid unless you get pregnant every year, which many people do, mashallah. But at the same time, it's not annual. So in principle, there is nothing wrong with the idea of coming together for a baby shower. But there's a few conditions, obviously. Number one, extravagance. Israf has to be avoided. There's a lot of extravagance at these things. A lot of wastefulness, a lot of extravagance, just like in weddings, right? There's a lot of wastefulness. And it also puts people in a hard position socially. You're expected to give a certain gift, and if you're given a gift, you're expected to give a certain gift. This is wrong. To put people under that pressure is wrong. So it should not be treated like a must. Can't get mad at someone for not attending a baby shower. Specific practices that are specific to the cultural baby showers that we have should be avoided. Specific practices should be avoided as much as possible. Why? Because they're shubuhat, they're doubtful matters. Okay? So you should try to avoid the specific practices. But in essence, if it's just a gathering to give gifts to the mom, to prepare her for her baby, then it's fine. But I want to make a note on that. It's much better to do that. So giving gifts to the mother, helping them prepare for the baby is a good thing. But it is much better to do that after she gives birth to the baby. A lot of times I've seen it happen. It's heartbreaking. The baby shower is done. You have all these gifts all over the place. And then, the baby dies. The psychological and the traumatic effect of that, is not something that the Sharia would want, obviously. Okay, so we should not want that to happen. Alright, so it's better not to do that to people, to give the gifts before and have this party before. It's better to do it afterwards. one time, just bring your gifts. Maybe you could combine it with the aqiqah, right? It's good for the people to provide gifts and, you know, help the mother prepare and things of that sort. So again, in principle, nothing wrong with it. Specific practices should be avoided. Okay, and we should try to eliminate the non-Islamic practices, and it's better to do it afterwards. It's better to do it after, because then you'd also be fulfilling a sunnah at that point, which is helping the new parents is actually a form of sunnah, as we'll come across, right? The Sahaba would help each other out. Giving gifts afterwards is actually a sunnah. Okay. Also, in the last trimester, many of the scholars, particularly Imam Malik rahimahullah, and from the Maliki school, they say at that point a woman can only dispose of a third of her property. Why? The person does their will, right? They can only, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already designated 2/3 of everything that you own. 1/3 of it is what you own, right? You can give charity with that. You can designate some of it to your family. Perhaps you want to give, you know, someone who's getting a share, a larger share. So you can do whatever you want with that 1/3. Some of the ulama, they said that Rasulullah said that a woman in her last trimester, because she's so close, subhanAllah, to death, especially in those times, you know, you don't have the hospitals and things that we have today, right? The advancements that we have today, that she's so close at that point she can only designate 1/3 of her property. I'm not saying I agree with that opinion, I just find it very significant, subhanAllah, just to mention it. But there is no authentic hadith that I could find, at least, that would designate that. But a person who's following the Maliki school, obviously they would be bound by that opinion. But just to show you again, you're fi halati, you know, jihadin fi sabilillah. You're in a position of being a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment. You're being pushed close to death at those moments, and it's very important to keep that in mind. What are some of the things that can be done during pregnancy? Okay. Number one is that children can hear things in the womb, right? You see people with their headphones and stuff like that, walking around, playing stuff on their iPod or iPad or whatever it is, letting them listen to all kinds of jazz music or, you know, symphonies and stuff like that to try to enhance their brains. And, you know, subhanAllah, it's been medically proven that when the child is in a traumatic environment, I was listening to a doctor talk about this, a child psychologist talk, when it's in a traumatic environment, when it's hearing yelling and screaming all the time, even when it's in the womb, it'll come out and it'll already kind of have a bad attitude, right? It'll already be traumatized a little bit from everything it's been hearing on the outside. And you find that with the time of the Salaf, Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said the Salaf used to recite the Quran to the child even when the child was in the womb. Okay, they would actually recite the Quran to the child even when in the womb. And he said especially in the voice of the mother, because that's the relationship obviously that's going to need to be the strongest, and one that's going to need to have the most trust in it, and things, the component of trust. So in the voice of the parents, I mean, even the father also, but hearing the Quran in that voice. So you don't just put sudais on your stomach. You recite the Quran to your child, subhanAllah, while the child is in the womb. And there are no particular surahs for that. Right? So I was seeing some websites like recite every day Surah Al-Fatiha 45 times to your child, and then read Qul Huwallahu Ahad 17 times. All of that is nonsense. Right? Just reading Quran in general is a good thing to do. Reading Quran to your child while the child is in the womb. The Imam Ibn Sirin rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that a person should make the child familiar with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the child comes on the womb. So even speaking to the child about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making them familiar with Allah's names. Subhanallah. Even if obviously they're not going to come out, like Isa alayhi salam and say, Inni Abdullah, it's not going to happen. If it does, then mashallah, but we'd be pretty impressed with just Baba, or Mama, But still, just preparing the child and having a good environment around, subhanAllah, harmony around the child, not lots of yelling and screaming and stuff like that. Okay, having harmony in the environment, even while the child is in the stomach, and obviously making dua for the child's righteousness and health. Think about it. This is the time where you really need to step up your dua. Okay, so engaging in dua. Not just making dua for a gender, you shouldn't be doing that. Making dua for righteousness, for health. Okay? And go far. Zakaria alayhi salam, when he made dua, before Yahya alayhi salam, he's in his 90s and he's making dua to Allah for a child, before Allah even told him that, okay, I'll give you a child, he's already asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of the qualities of the child. Right? يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. He's already talking to Allah about how he wants his child to be. Okay? So make dua for specific things. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you, a scholar. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you a da'iyah. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes your child special. Radiyya, pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua that Allah makes your child intelligent. All those things. Make dua for that. Be specific. Don't wait to see the child and then decide then how you're going to make dua for the child. Make du'as for specifics, even while the child is in the womb. Inshallah. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and break for questions, inshallah, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back, inshallah, 3 o'clock. Yes, sister?
I'm in my second trimester, and I get really busy, and a head rush coming from Lecutre to Bayan. So I've modified by sitting in my second and fourth class, so I pop up to the third. Is that okay?
I mean, it's better to maintain consistency throughout the salah. So if you have the excuse to sit, just sit.
For the whole thing?
Yeah. If you don't know if you're gonna fall or you're gonna be dizzy or things of that sort. So for example, if you want to pray, like if you think you can make it 2 rak'ahs without getting dizzy and it's not harmful to you at all, then you could do those 2 rak'ahs of sunnah that way. But it's better not to just be alternating so much throughout the salah. Just from the fiqh of salah. If it's consistent, that's fine, inshallah. Do as much as you can, that's fine. But you have the permission. If you have the permission to sit for 1 rak'ah in salah, you have the permission to sit throughout the salah. If you're not able to stand for the entire salah, then you have that permission.
Yeah, it's not the act of standing itself, it's just going to
sujood.
Sujood.
Have you talked to a doctor about that and things of that sort?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's why, mashallah, women are mujahideen at that time. All kinds of stuff happens, right? I'll go 1 brother, 1 sister. So yeah. Yes. What's that?
Just for the benefit of having a daughter who works well, is it okay to ask for a daughter?
Is it okay to ask for a daughter or ask for a son? It's okay. It's okay to ask for. It's okay. You can't say it's haram to ask for a gender. Just don't be disappointed if it's a girl, or if it's a son. It's okay. Yeah.
You talked about not practicing certain practices during baby showers.
I've never been to a baby shower, so I can't give you too much specifics on what you need to avoid. But I mean, obviously, just things that are very specific, like to the culture, right? They're shubhat, they're doubtful matters. Right, so bringing flowers to a wedding is okay, but when you start doing like specific things, like turning around and throwing it and whoever catches it, like when you do that kind of stuff. I've never been to a baby shower, I have no idea how a baby shower looks. Alright, but just avoiding specific practices because they might fall into doubtful things. Alright, so that's all. So just having a get together to plan for it, that's fine. Not being extravagant. Again, it's better to do it afterwards, but it's fine. So, yes.
So, go back to the previous section. You mentioned that if it's after 4 months, and the baby there's a miscarriage, you do the janaza and bodies and all that. But before 4 months, and the Sharia says there's no life, but there's a heartbeat of the baby medically. So you're not required to do the janaza and
no. No. You don't throw it away in the garbage. I mean, you still dispose in a reasonable way. But there's no soul at that point. The ruh is different from the physical preparations and things of that sort. The soul is different, it's distinguished.
So you can't do the naming?
No, you don't name at that point. You don't do that. I should repeat questions, right? The question was about if a child dies before 4 months. So you're obviously not going to throw it away. You'll still dignify the fetus, right? But you're not going to name it and do janazah and things of that sort. Also at that point. Sisters, yes.
Actually, from the same question, if the baby is about the age of 4 months and it wasn't carried, so you don't know if it's before, and the doctor is like, it may be period.
You assume it has a soul.
I'm sorry?
You assume that it was more because you take the safe side in that. You build upon what's certain. So if you don't know if it's 4 months, it could have been 4 months, maybe a day younger, a day older, then you would take the safe side.
Yeah, because like 15,
yeah, obviously. Yeah. I mean, the Salaf didn't used to have like ultrasounds and stuff like that. And you make your best judgment, and you assume you always want to be you always want to err on the side of caution.
And the blood is going to be the fast at that time?
What's that? Yes, and the blood will be nifas at that time. You're assuming fully that it's a 4-month. If it's on the border, you're assuming it's a 4-month-old baby. Who raised their hands first? Go ahead. Yeah.
Going back to the question you mentioned, the 4-month period, deformity also could be a reason for.
Yes.
So,
because it's a haja, it's not a darura.
so it's not just a danger to the life, it's even physical deformity.
No, because a haja, so the question is about deformity and things of that sort, and if the child has some serious issues and it's still within the 4 months, right, then at that point it still falls within haja, it's still allowed. Okay? Sister's question. Yeah.
Can you explain what you meant by the 1/3 of the property that has reference to the will? Or?
Did you guys attend the will part last night? The will gathering? Oh, okay. So, yeah, in reference to the will, in a will. So right now, if I want to give all of my money to my daughter because I feel like it, that's fine. It's halal. But once you're dead, you can't say in my will, I want to give everything to my daughter. At that point, it goes to the divisions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made in inheritance. So in essence, at that point, Imam Malik rahimahullah said at that point, in that last trimester, then you're like that person. You can't just give everything up because you're free. You're only allowed to designate that 1/3. Yeah. I'll do one more question and we'll take a break inshallah. Yeah. I'll get you brother.
Is it miscarriage after 4 months or even before 4 months considered miscarriage? Like, is it a miscarriage after the soul, or was it?
It's a miscarriage regardless. But the fetus has the soul after 4 months. Alright? Alright, so we'll take a break inshallah ta'ala. Probably 10 minutes, inshallah. Give people a chance to refresh themselves. I think, do we have any refreshments outside? We have tea and refreshments outside inshallah ta'ala. So we'll reconvene at 3:05 inshallah. Okay? Reconvene at 3:05. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, let me turn the light on.
It's not personal or anything. It's just
No, I know, just-
before 4 months, right? How are babies moving? When you say the idea that it hasn't been for 4 months, because the guy
Under 16. So the idea it's a very, very, very tricky situation. That's why Allah says when it comes to the room, say to the room. It says this one, the session, so what I'm saying is there are many words for soul in the earth. Even the word light, it's hard.
like that is just like I know
I think it's a
embryo.
So that's the thing, once you start delving into it, for example, it is confusing. For example, die, their body's still making some decisions. That ruh is not there anymore. I see an animal that's dead, it's still making decisions. There's some moral aspects, it's still active in some ways. But the ruh in particular, because the hadith is authentic, it's not regenerated. So I'm not saying that the Prophet What came?
It came from a lot to the property.
Yeah.
And he said it's not till 4 months. I mean, maybe they didn't have sonogram plan. They didn't have
No, it's the highest degree of authenticity. In the state. But that doesn't mean, again, to our knowledge. To our knowledge. But the ruh is from Allah. So we don't even know what a ruh means. That's the thing. We don't know what a ruh means. And that's why Allah says that the soul is so confusing in its nature. Don't delve into it. It's a breathe.
I met you yesterday, right? Yes.
So just getting your help on this. So she's asking a question. She says, the hadith about the soul not being breathed in for 4 months. So at 16 weeks on the sonogram, the baby's making some kind of decisions. So my answer was that the ruh is not necessarily.
Like the baby is jumping, kicking, biting its fingers, it's acting like a baby for 4 months. And you see it live actually. And it's deciding I want to
Congratulations,
thanks for the next shot for us. But I'm like, it's strange to both, I guess, acting up, not just growing, but making its own decision to chew on fingers. It's not a reflex, it's just food. So I don't understand that.
I mean, I think I'm going to have to talk to my doctor about that. Some doctor I know has a lot of insight on I mean, based on what we know,
I can study it further.
Well, I mean, it's cool, kind of, but it's like it's maybe impression because I thought it was a live person, not just doing reflexes or something like that. It's a dead person, not just nervous system, but like babies. If you thinking of it, the baby's growing. It's growing, yeah.
16 weeks is 4 months. That's 120 days.
No, I'm 3 At 3 months, the webbing in between the fingers is gone. They have fingerprints identifying that females have 2 million eggs in their ovaries. They really developed at 3 months. After 3 months, it just gets bigger.
Give us a chance to look into it.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah, I would think it's a good, like.
It's a good question.
Good question. I'm not questioning, like.
You're not questioning faith. I know. I understand. You just want to understand. That's what it's
Right. Now that we have to go.
I'm curious to I'm curious to inshallah we'll look into it.
You can take my email address,
And you can take my email both of us at the same time.
And it was like I don't know.
Okay, you can go for it. How much?
So I should be satisfied to all the.
Yeah. Be on the safe side. It's better to be on the safe side.
So I have to pray always.
No, Imam. So you should have treated it. And it wasn't Imam.
Epic Masjid.
It's like, you know, sometimes you don't know.
Right. No, you made your best question.
Yeah, people like pray and everything.
Let me give you my email address. Sure. My email address is It's okay. So when's the baby due?
August 5th, big, big for us because we struggled to have a last child. To have a big.
OMAR at email. IMAL. Do you want me to type? You can email me, inshallah. I'll look into it. I'll study it, inshallah, as much as I can. No, I'm not disrespected at all by the I gotta get my work. I don't want to make you nervous.
Actually, you know what? You know, I wasn't actually after I was taking on that much of school. I did a lot of classes.
Yeah, I just had a question about I wasn't first of all saying that it's basically more to do with something. Like if my husband wants to be like a philosophy, and all I have for my wife and daughter.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
For my wife and daughters, and you know, he puts in the percentage, and then he gives the child under somebody's custody, and you know, when they are eligible to get it, I mean, he can write it away from us, right?
Yes.
Or does he have to follow the law?
Oh, that's what he should be writing in his will. Yesterday, someone did ask this question that can we just write that our money be distributed based on Islamic inheritance, and the attorney said no. It has to be written out precisely.
The way he wants it.
No, not the way he wants it, the way Allah mentions it in the Quran. That's the way it needs to be. The other things, it can be based on what he wants, is as that right? But the money that's going to be distributed, everyone, you cannot, the people who are going to be inheriting the money, you cannot simply cut them out. They have to be given their appropriate share. Yes, I mean, all that is going to be based on, I don't, your brothers get shares? No, brothers don't get shares. The children will get the shares, his spouse will get a share, his parents will get a share, but not his brothers. So generally that's what happens. People they try to, like yesterday this question that did come up is that, can I cut my wife out of the picture? Can I cut my children out of the picture? And no, you cannot. Because they are, by Quran, they are going to be here, you know. So you cannot, and one thing in the will is that you have to make it very precise. So.
Yeah, it's just back home, you take advantage of the fact that you don't have sons, you know, try to grab them.
Yes, and the woman, daughter, for example, provides more. She's a provider, and her share. It's not like I'm just throwing out there. So you have to take consideration. The reason why it's designated is on the you know, the I guess the assumption that the son is going to provide, he's going to be a provider.
That's why the son is.
It's not about man and woman.
It's not preference or superiority of
his mother receives the same as father.
Yeah.
The son receives more.
Generally, they're in a position of taking care. Yeah, I mean, times the tables have turned. Yeah. But I'll give you the number of the attorney, inshallah. And do you receive weekly emails from Epic? Okay, so we will be sending out, and I will be working actually close with the attorney, creating official Epic from Epic, all the details regarding Islamic will and Islamic inheritance. We're creating a form, inshallah. And all the questions that came yesterday, we'll be typing them out and explaining like a detailed answer to each. And then inshallah, we'll create that for the next 1 or 2 months, inshallah, and we'll give to
I need that.
Okay.
Circumcision. I don't think there's much. I mentioned it. Honestly.
Okay.
Don't worry, it's gonna happen. Okay. Are you staying? Am I going back home?
No, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I'll mention everything with this. I mentioned I guess in the area of nifas.
Because even when you can eat them, you don't want to focus on a lot of don't expect it because there's some Islamic scripture.
Yeah.
Everyone that puts the responsibility on Islamic scripture. Always said that this starts off on.
Absolutely.
And the very first people that need to.
Did you get the first session, right?
Yeah.
All about tarbiyah.
Yeah.
But you heard about it.
And I focus on that here a lot in my message. Is that parents need to treat themselves before, tarbiyah starts at home. Don't expect that someone's supposed to do as well.
I have to take my brother and then I'll take yours. Let me just tell people to get back. No, you got some, Sheikh. You have something?
No. I just want to.
What do you think so far?
Yeah, I like people have comments with it. I like the way he approach the emotional.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Actually, that's it. Actually, the doctor, there was a doctor of college. He came to me and asked me this, is that when the brain is dead, pretty much your ribs are, you are inhaling and exhaling because of the machine. So he goes, are you already considered as breathing or not? And I told him, I said, pretty much, yeah, because, it's once the machine, so I said that pretty much when the machine is the one that's inhaling and exhaling from that point.
All the muftis I've asked.
Yeah.
Because I used to get that. My mom went inside and she was bringing it. So, like, what do you do? I was like, look, I know in my fault. What's the point of that? It's just, you can't live on your own. You're not killing the person. By taking them off the machine. If they're meant to live, they'll live without it.
This happened in our community also. There was a kid who was hurt. And there was a 6-year-old kid. He was going outside. And his parents were very active. And so that happened, and so some doctors came there and asked, because as soon as they take him off the machine, that's when they time of death. So one guy came to me and said that, is that what the time is, or is it some other time? So I said that really it's not the time of death. They go try to go back to the hospital and correct him. It doesn't really matter anyway. What's you gonna do with the time anyway? The only thing you remember is what they keep. So keep remember that. The time doesn't matter whether it's 1 hour or 2 hours, or because the night before he was already brain dead, and they'll just keep the machine just hoping for a miracle to happen.
I'm gonna give him this slide. So 4:30. Also break at 4:20. 4:25.
If you only 4:25, generally it happens that it takes some time. Just to get everything ready. So you want 4:25.
Inshallah, we'll be getting started.
It's very warm in here. Can we turn the fans on perhaps?
Can we turn the fans on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alright, I gotta find where all the wires that I was wearing. Alright, there's like 4 of them. Alright, there's this one. Nothing too heavy yet, right? It's okay so far, right? Start getting into Afiq and stuff like that, that's fine. Good. So if we can have everyone back inside, inshallah, so we can get started. Sorry if the first session was a little lengthy. Okay, sure. Exactly. Alright, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. So let's continue, inshallah. Alright, so we've gone over some of the things that you need to do during the pregnancy, the fiqh aspect of it, and also some of the things you can do to benefit the child, inshallah, before the child is born. Alright, so now let's go ahead and let's get to the time of birth. That's where most of the questions usually come up. Alright, the time of birth. Number one, remember your dua is mustajab. Okay, that's the first thing. Remember your dua is mustajab. So try to force yourself to pray at that moment. I can't even imagine how a woman would try at that moment during delivery. But try your best. I mean, if you can squeeze in a dua while you're delivering, then inshallah ta'ala it's a good one. Don't make dua against your husband while you're delivering. Might be a little tempting at that moment. Alright? But no, again, this is what An-Nawawi rahimahullah is saying, is that the more you're pushed, obviously what Rasulullah informed us, the tougher the time, the more precious the dua. So you try your best at that time. You had a question about that?
No. If the husband remind you during the labor, that works best.
If the husbands, don't faint, don't pass out, don't get scared. Alright? Inshallah, she'll go back to being normal. She won't always scream at you that way, and she didn't mean it, everything that she said. Just remind her to make dua. Okay? Remind her to make dua.
Also, if the husband wars the dua at that time, because at that moment of pain, it's very hard to remember.
So word the dua also. It's a good one, obviously. Alright, so the time of birth. So obviously the time of birth, Rasulullah told us that every time the child is born, the child is poked, if you will, by shaitan. In the sense that the shaitan is already declaring his enmity for that child, even when the child is just born. And obviously, whenever we're approached by the shaitan, when we feel thoughts of the shaitan, we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. And actually, Rasulullah said, for that reason, the mother of Maryam, when she made the dua, and she said, وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ, that I seek refuge in you from the shaitan for my daughter and for her offspring, that whenever she made dua for her child and for the offspring of that child, that her dua was so sincere, was so genuine, that Allah Azza wa Jalla answered Hinna bint Faqud radiallahu anha's dua, and Maryam and Isa were born not crying. And not because there was something wrong with them, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them so much peace that when they were born, they were not crying. Now obviously you'd be very scared if your baby's born not crying, but with them, because of the peace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to them, because of that dua of the mother. So obviously you're making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you know, Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, he said something that's very important. He said transferring realms is always hard, going from one world to another, right? And he likened it very beautifully, to the way that a person would go from dunya to barzakh, to the realm of death, right? No matter how good you are, there's still, you can't really know everything that you're going to expect. It's a totally different realm. It's a totally different world. And that's why it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing in its nature. But Allah makes it easier for the believer. And being raised from barzakh to the world of the akhirah is traumatizing. The people that would have been punished their entire lives in the barzakh, in that realm of death, would say, Ya waylana man ba'athana min marqadina hada, who woke us up from our sleep? So it's traumatizing. It's because they're seeing a whole other world. So you're going from one world to another, and it's naturally very traumatizing. So you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for you. Right? To make it easy for you. And you make dua for your children also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it a smooth delivery. And Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, when Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, Inna hadaynahu sabil, we guided him to the path, imma shakiran wa imma kafura, either he'll be grateful or he'll be ungrateful. He said it's literal in the sense that literally Allah guided you out of your mother's womb. And subhanAllah, when you study medicine, I haven't studied medicine, but I've heard this frequently said. People who study medicine, they just say, subhanAllah, how do you not believe in Allah when you study this stuff? All the processes, everything that's going into that. This sophisticated creation, and then everything that can go wrong at birth, and still the baby is born. Right? So Allah says, Inna hadaynahu sabil. Allah makes it easy for you. He guides you that path, and He guides you the path of Islam also. So it's in the literal sense, as in coming out of your mother's womb, and it's also in the sense Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you the clear path. He guides you to the clear path, and you can either be grateful or ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a result. So a lot of things can happen at that moment. It's important to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for the child. And that's why the first thing that you do when the child comes out is what? Right away, adhan. Okay? Now, adhan very softly. Alright? Don't scream at the child. Don't try to sound like the mu'adhin at the haram. Start going, Allahu Akbar, Allah. You don't do that. Okay? But subhanAllah, you take the child and you soothe it with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is narrated by Abu Rafi' in the hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud, the authentic hadith, that I saw when Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu was born, Al-Hasan ibn Ali to Fatima radiallahu anha, the Prophet ﷺ took Al-Hasan and he uttered the adhan in his right ear. So he quietly made the adhan in his right ear in a soft, soothing voice. Okay? Not in a very loud voice. So the adhan is made in the right ear. Although there is no authentic hadith about the iqamah in the left ear, many of the scholars said you also do the iqamah in the left ear. Okay? So there is no sahih hadith per se, but it is many of the scholars said you do the adhan in the right ear and then you'll turn and you'll do adhan into the left ear. But try to do that, brothers in particular, hopefully you're not passed out by then. Try to do that right away. Okay? Just take the child, it's a very touching moment. It's beautiful, subhanAllah. And wallahi, I'm not lying, when my daughter was born, that was the only time she wasn't crying. It was like in the first 2 hours of her birth, when I did adhan in her ear, she just got quiet. What's going on here? Then she went back to crying. And obviously the way that they treat the baby, if those of you who haven't seen the way they treat the baby in the hospital, it's like being at a factory or something like that, right? It's just like it's like whatever, They're not really paying attention to you. You're like, are you sure that's okay? It's like they're packaging cheese or something like that. Alright? But they're packaging a baby. But subhanAllah, it soothes the baby. Remind them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So doing the adhan in the right ear, in a soft voice, don't terrify the child from the very start. And Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah, this is also attributed to Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he said, look at how powerful this is. You come into this world with adhan, but no salah. Right? You come into this world with adhan but no salah. You leave this world with salah but no adhan. Right? So the time of your life is like the time between adhan and salah. It's just a short period of time. The time of your life is just like the time between adhan and salah. So you have to make the best use of it. But it's very powerful. We come in with adhan, we leave with salah. Okay? So try to do that right away. And we find, at these moments, and this is where I said, every time one of my friends would have a child, they get like 20, 30 text messages. What do we do now? What do we do now? What do we do now? Because there's so many nice sunnah that you can extract blessings from your child at that time. And we saw the Sahaba had this keenness, right? They would take their children to the Prophet ﷺ right away. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu, he said, as soon as I had my son Ibrahim, we ran to the Prophet ﷺ. Anas says about his mother, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, says his mother Sulaym radiallahu anha, when she had a son named Abdullah, immediately requested Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they wanted to get the most out of the pregnancy. They wanted to make this the best. They wanted to start off on the right, on the right foot as much as they possibly could. And we find some narrations in that regard. One of them is that when the Muslims made hijrah, some of the people in Medina, particularly the Jewish tribes in Medina, the ones that were at war with the Muslims, not the ones that were at peace with the Muslims, particularly some of the Jews from Banu Qurayza. Some of the Jews from Medina were on good terms with the Muslims, for those who don't know. Alright? Particularly some of them from Banu Qurayza. They said that we placed a spell on the Muslims and no one's going to have kids here. So no one's going to be able to have kids. And so in the first few months, some of the Muslims believed that, unfortunately. So there were a few miscarriages here and there, and so some of the Muslims started to think they were cursed. Some of them thought there was actually a spell on them. And then there was a child that was born. 6 months after Hijrah. Does anyone know who that child was? Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu. First child born in Medina after Hijrah. Who are his parents? Obviously as Zubayr, and who else? Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha wa radiallahu an abiha. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when that happened, he took Abdullah ibn Zubayr and he literally paraded him around the streets in Medina and was chanting Allahu Akbar. Right? Because it showed that the spell wasn't there. And some of the Muslims didn't believe it was because of the spell. They just thought because it was a different climate. You know, they all of a sudden came from a very dry land to a very they thought it was a different climate, that it would be hard for them to have children. So that obviously disproved that idea that there was a spell. And Asma radiallahu anha says that we then brought Abdullah ibn Zubayr to the Prophet ﷺ and we placed him on his lap, and the Prophet ﷺ asked for a date, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he chewed that date, and he had some saliva. So he chewed that date with his own saliva, and then he rubbed the chewed date on the roof of the mouth of Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu. So he chewed a piece of date, and he put it on the mouth of Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu. He rubbed the date on the roof of the mouth of Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And that was the first child to be born to Islam. So this is called tahniq. Tahniq. Tahniq, tahannuk, is whenever you take the date, you chew the date, and you rub the date on the roof of the mouth of the child. A more explicit hadith is from Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu that I went to the Prophet ﷺ with my brother. His stepbrother was Abdullah ibn Abi Talha, was his stepbrother. Okay? His mom, Sulaim, had Abdullah. And again, so we said that the Prophet ﷺ was the first one to be introduced to Abdullah. So they took Abdullah to the Prophet ﷺ, and Rasulullah ﷺ was outside, tending to a camel. And Rasulullah ﷺ, whenever he was requested to come, he came and he held the baby. And he said to me, "Do you have any dates with you?" And I said, "Yes," and I handed them to him. And Rasulullah ﷺ, he moistened them with his tongue. He opened the child's mouth and he rubbed the date on the top of the child's mouth, and the baby started to laugh. So the baby was happy. Abdullah was happy. So he started to smile. And he says Rasulullah ﷺ smiled so widely that the back of his teeth showed. So Rasulullah ﷺ was happy, and Rasulullah ﷺ, he said, "Unzuru hubbul ansar ila tamr." Look at the love that the Ansar have for dates. Right? Because the Ansar lived around dates. MashaAllah, Medina has really good dates. You haven't eaten real dates until you go to Medina. Okay, the ones that we have here, even California, for those of you that live in California and stuff like that, not real dates. Alright? But, subhanAllah, so the Prophet ﷺ was happy, and then he said, وَسَمَّاهُ Abdullah, he named him Abdullah. So the Prophet ﷺ actually named this child Abdullah. The point is, again, you don't have to necessarily chew the dates, okay, but you make a piece of date soft. Don't sit there and try to stuff a big majul date in the child's mouth and choke him. Alright, you take a piece of date, you make it soft, okay, you chew on it, and you rub it on the roof of the mouth. This is following the sunnah. And the scholar said anything sweet can work as a replacement. Alright, but let me just talk about that for a little bit. Alright, you don't put baklawa or rasmalai or anything like that in the child's mouth. Anything sweet, they said, in the absence of dates, mashallah, there are dates everywhere. But what this does is, by the way, there's medical research, mashallah, that has shown that this actually stimulates the child's immune system. Putting the little piece of dates in the child's system, that sugar, the little bit of sugar, it actually stimulates their system. So it's actually good for them. Now, traditionally speaking, some of the scholars said, if you don't have dates, what do you use? Honey. But that's actually a terrible idea. And it's not haram to say that, because it's not necessarily from the sunnah. Some of the scholars just thought that naturally, if you're not going to use dates, then you use honey. But there's actually been plenty of study, and it's confirmed that using honey can actually hurt the child very much if you give the child honey within the first year, okay, of the child's life. It's called infant botulism, I think it is. B-O-T-U-L-I-S-M. Is that how you pronounce it? Botulism with the CH there? Okay. So you shouldn't put honey, even if you read in some of the traditional books they use honey if you don't have dates, don't put honey there. Okay? And also for the woman. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to Maryam? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her dates and warm water. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her dates and warm water. So we can take from that it's good for the woman also. And by the way, again, medical research has shown that it replenishes the woman. You know, it calms her down, it subhanAllah replenishes her. Dates are an amazing, they just have amazing nutritional value. Dates have amazing nutritional value. So it's good to replenish the woman at that point with dates and drinking water. Alright, so that's what you're going to do right away. Now the next thing is obviously naming the child. Okay, naming the child. I'm going to offend some people when I get to naming the child, because some people might have some of the names that I'm saying that you should not name your child with. Alright, so please, if I see everyone look around and look at one person like La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, I'm never going to call you by your name again. That's not my intention. My intention is to talk about what are the best names to give. Okay, so how do you name your child? What's the process of naming your child? First question is, when do you name your child? So traditionally, you know, the ulama used to say the 7th day is the time that you name the child. So the best time, because Rasulullah ﷺ named Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein on the 7th day. Okay, on the same day of their aqiqah, the Prophet ﷺ named Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. So some of them said the 7th day, but that doesn't mean it's set in stone, because in Sahih Muslim, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that Rasulullah ﷺ said, a boy was born to me last night, وَسَمَّيْتُهُ Ibrahim, and I named him Ibrahim. So he was born last night. So the Prophet ﷺ obviously named him before 7 days. So the only reason I'm mentioning that is because you can name them at any time. Alright, in our society in particular, it might be kind of awkward to have just a baby without a name for the first 7 days. You can name them even before the child is born, that's okay. Alright, but the Prophet ﷺ named the child one night later. Now, what are some of the guidelines for choosing the name? Alright, first and foremost, all names are permissible unless something is objectionable about them. It's important to understand that. So you can choose to name your child anything that's not objectionable. But when we're talking about the best names, the best names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're having a son, obviously, are what? Abdullah and Abdurrahman. Rasulullah ﷺ said, Ahabbul Asma, the most beloved names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are Abdullah and Abdurrahman. And he actually said Abdurrahman and Abdullah. And well, we'll talk about what the Prophet ﷺ did. Allahu A'lam. But when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu heard that from the Prophet ﷺ, he named 3 of his sons Abdurrahman. So he had Abdullah bin Umar. Then he named 3 of them, Abdurrahman al-Kabir, Abdurrahman al-Saghir, Abdurrahman al-Wasat. He had the big one, the middle one, and the small one. Okay? SubhanAllah, that just shows you their keenness to follow the sunnah. You know, I'm telling you, you know, I don't want to, actually I'm not going to, I have to be very careful with this. A sister that I know, okay, wanted to name her child, her daughter Fatima. And whenever she wanted to do that, her relatives, hijabi, shidbab, they said that ism qadim, that's an old name, you know, why don't you name them something new, like flavor to it, right? It's like, it's the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, right? The keenness to follow the sunnah. I'm telling you, and that's why, by the way, if you go to the Middle East now, very few people are now naming their daughters and their sons after Sahaba and Sahabiyat and stuff like that. It's very rare now. It really is now. It's very rare. It's not haram to name them other things, but it's like looked down upon. Okay, why are you doing the same old thing over and over again? Okay, but look at the Sahaba's keenness to follow the Sunnah. Umar al-Khattab named 3 of his kids Abdurrahman. So that's the first thing. There's another category of names, which is the abd of anything, the ibad of anything, or Amma, right? Amatullah, or so on and so forth. There's a weak hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that any of the names that have ubudiyya in them are beloved names, are the best of names. Okay, it's a weak hadith, but some of the scholars still acted upon that. They said it's good to name your child Abdul something, you know, an established name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having ubudiyya there, okay, having the servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala denoted in there. These are just good names. Again, the third category is the names of prophets and messengers. And Imam al-Qayyim is the one who's giving these categories. Okay, Rasulullah ﷺ actually said, "Sammu anfusakum bi asma' al-anbiya." Name yourselves with the names of the prophets. Okay. So, for example, what did the Prophet ﷺ name his son? Ibrahim. And you asked about that question about why didn't he name his kids that? When did the Prophet ﷺ have most of his kids? Before Wahy. Ibrahim was the only one after Wahy. And Rasulullah ﷺ named him after his father Ibrahim. And the Prophet ﷺ loved Ibrahim ﷺ. It was his father. There was a very close relationship, obviously. No one is like more like the Prophet ﷺ than Ibrahim ﷺ. He looks like him. Subhanallah. Rasulullah ﷺ looks like Ibrahim ﷺ. So he was even created with his same physical appearance almost. When he saw him, he was shocked, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he saw him in Isra wal Mi'raj, he looked like him, he resembled him. Subhanallah. And there's no greater prophet after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam than Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay? Abul Anbiya, the father of the prophets. Alright? So he said, name your children after the Anbiya. And of course, the fourth category is the names of righteous people. It's good to name your children after righteous people. Whether they're Sahaba or even some of the modern day righteous people that we have. Or you see someone who has some righteousness in them and you want to name your children after them. That's a nice thing to do. Okay, it's a beautiful thing to do. A lot of times people ask me why I named my daughter May. Right? M-A-Y. And people think I was just trying to cop out. I didn't want my daughter to have too much of an Arabic name so she could blend in. That's why I named her May. I named her that after my mother, rahmatullah alayha. I thought my mother was righteous. I named her after my mother. I thought it's a righteous woman. So you name after righteous people. If you know righteous people, the names of the Sahaba fall in that category, it's good to name after them. Right? It's good to name after them. I forgot who it was. I think Az-Zubair. Yes, Az-Zubair radiallahu anhu was talking about him and Talha radiallahu anhu. So Az-Zubair said, Talha named all of his kids after prophets. I named all of my kids after shuhada. All of the kids of Az-Zubair were named after shuhada. So Abdullah ibn Zubair was named after Abdullah ibn Jahsh. Right? Mus'ab ibn Zubair, Mus'ab ibn Umayr. Right? He named all of his kids after shuhada. So you want to name your kids after righteous people. And then again, names with good meanings. Okay, names with good meanings that you want your kids to have, obviously. Now, obviously, sometimes people I name my kid a good name. Like I name my kid, what's one of those, subhanAllah, there's sometimes people have the opposite character of their name, right? Right? I name my kid something that has, denotes leniency, for example. He's just a crazy, angry bully, what happened? Right? And Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, it's not the name that makes the child, but it's the intention behind the name when you give them that name. Think about that. I'm naming my child this name because I want them to have those characteristics. You're making dua by naming your child. You're naming the child as a dua because you want them to have those characteristics. Right? And that's why, for example, the name Muhammad, okay? Now, I know that almost everyone now from the subcontinent is named Muhammad. But it's really, and what's sad is that in some countries in the Middle East, Muhammad is like the way that you degrade someone, right? Muhammad, hey Muhammad, you don't know someone's name, Muhammad, ta'al Muhammad, Muhammad, right? You call someone Muhammad, it's like kind of belittling the name in a way, right? But Muhammad, you're naming after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, beautiful name. How many of you know Imam al-Ghazali's name? You know what Imam al-Ghazali's name was? It was Abu Hamid, right? That was his kunya. Muhammad, his name was Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad al-Ghazali. 5 Muhammads in his name. So it's beautiful, naming after the prophets, naming with good names. Obviously you should avoid names with bad meanings. Okay? Names with bad meanings. Unfortunately, people think if it's in the Quran that it's a good name. No, that's not the case, because there's sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking bad about someone. And we have people named Zania sometimes, right? Adulteress. You see some terrible names. I've met people that have the worst names. Why would you do that to your children? Name them after bad names. So don't just name them any Arabic word that you can find and say, I saw it in the Quran. Study the meaning of the name first. Make sure you don't name your kids with bad meanings. Some of the names, when I was living in the Khalij, some of the names that I used to see over there, and even in Palestine, by the way, even some of the names are just really, really bad names. They have bad meanings. You have people that are named angry, and Ghadban, and Za'lan, and you have all kinds of names. It's why? Why would you do that? I understand if it's the tribe name, but if you're naming your kid that, why are you going to name him that? Right? So anyway, good meanings. Also, names which are exclusive to the disbelievers. Exclusive to the disbelievers should not be used. So, things that are biblical but not from the Quran, not from the Sunnah, they're not names of prophets, for example. Things that are exclusive to them. Okay? So you shouldn't name your kid, for example, Christian. It's obvious, right? You wouldn't name your kid Christian, okay? Or you wouldn't name your kid Paul. Alright? Those are names that are exclusive to them. Okay? And names which only belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and cannot even be used as an attribute. So you can't, I've seen some people named Rahman. It's haram to name your child Rahman. Only Allah can be Rahman. Can you name someone Kareem? Yeah, because a person can be generous. A person can be Kareem, but a person can't be Al-Kareem. Okay? You can't name your kid Qahir. Okay? The subduer, Al-Alim, Mutakabbir. You don't want to name your kid Al-Mutakabbir because pride with a human being denotes a bad thing. Right? Muhaymin, Quddus. So there are some names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are specific to Him, that are limited only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even their attributes are not given to human beings. They're not to be used for human beings. Also, names which denote enslavement to anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so we still find people named Abdul Nabi, for example, right? Or Abdul something else. Okay, Abdul anything but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not allowed. Okay, and names which are excessive in praise. Excessive in praise. So for example, Rasulullah ﷺ saw a girl's name who was Barra. Not Barra like outside. Barra means free of sin. And Rasulullah ﷺ changed her name to Zainab. Okay? Also, and I know this one might be a little offensive, and Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, his name was Muhyiddin. He hated that name. He refused for people to call him Muhyiddin. In fact, he said when he was dying, I will forgive anyone for any wrong they've done to me, but those who call me Muhyiddin, I don't forgive them. Muhyiddin means the one who gives life to the deen. He said, when was the deen dead? So he didn't like the name Muhyiddin for himself. He considered it bad for himself, right? So, you know, change it to like Mo or something like that. I'd say change it in that situation. But anything, you know, that has the deen in it. Like I've met people named like Sayyidul Khalq and Khairul Bashar and like stuff like that, like the best of man, the master of creation. Like we should not go overboard in praise. And obviously when you follow the Sahaba, you do well with that anyway. Alright? Now the next thing in regards to naming, the middle name should be the father's name. Why? Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Ud'uhum li abaihim huwa aqsatu 'inda Allah." And Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah Al-Ahzab, right? Ud'uhum li abaihim, Surah Al-Ahzab, right? Call them by the names of their fathers. That is more just to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So obviously we don't live in a society where it's bin this, bin that, bin this, bin that. You don't put ben or bint and stuff like that. You have the last name, which is equivalent to the qabila name, if you will, the name of the tribe, it's the name of the family. But it's good. I'm not saying it's fard. I'm saying it's good to then, just to fulfill that tradition, calling by the names of the fathers, it's good to make that the middle name then. The middle name, it's best to make that the father's name in that regard. Alright? Now once you have the child, if you want to congratulate someone who has had a child, and by the way, anything with deen in it, it's not haram. It's not haram. I'm saying some of the scholars did not like that. So for example, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, what's his name? Taqiyuddin. He said that I personally am not a fan of the name. He said that I wouldn't change it because it's not haram and my mother named me that. Okay, so it's not that, you know, so again, like if your name deen, something with deen at the end, sometimes it can be excessive. Sometimes it can be excessive, not always. But whenever it's like, you are the one, you are the nobility of the deen, right? Sharaf al-Deen or Muhyiddin, those types of things. Don't change your name, okay? But at the same time, if you're naming your kids, some of the scholars dislike that. That's all I was saying with that, alright? Now, if you want to welcome a child, if you want to congratulate someone who's had a child, and I recommend to everyone, and I do this in every class that I teach, to have the book Fortress of the Muslim, Hisnul Muslim. It's the authentic du'as for every single situation in your life, for most situations in your life. It's a very good book to have. There's an app for it. You can have it on your iPhone and now on your Joy. Okay? So download it, read it, or go to Google if you want to be, going to Google is traditional now. Go to Google and read the dua if you need to, from Fortress of the Muslim. But the dua of welcoming a child properly, as Nawawi rahimahullah writes down in Kitab al-Afkar, the authentic hadith, بارك الله لك في الموهوب لك وشكرت الواهب وبلغ أشده ورزقت بره. May Allah bless you with His gift to you and make the receiver give thanks and reach the maturity of years and be granted piety. And the response to that is بارك الله لك وبارك عليك وجزاك الله خيرا ورزقك الله مثله وأجزى له ثوابك. May Allah bless you and shower His blessings upon you. It's a tongue twister, I'm sorry. And may He reward you well and bestow upon you His like and reward you with open hands. So it's an authentic hadith. Just get it from Fortress of the Muslim if you have to. And if you don't know what to say, just say Jazakallah khair when someone tells you congratulations. All right. At least you're doing that part. Also, generally speaking, making dua for the child. I found this very significant. There's a hadith from Muawiyah ibn Qurra. It's not a hadith, but it is narrated in Bukhari's book of manners, Adab. He narrates that Muawiyah says that when my son Ilyas was born, I invited several of the Sahaba to a feast, and I fed them. And then after that, they prayed for me and my son. They made dua for me and my son. So the Sahaba made dua for me and my son. And I said, you have prayed, and may Allah bless you for your prayers. Now I am going to pray. فَقُولُوا آمين. So say Ameen. And he said, then I made dua for my son. I prayed for his deen, for his aql, for his mind, and so on. And the Sahaba said Ameen. So it's a very nice thing that the people would make dua for the child. Okay? So even in these gatherings and things of that sort, your baby shower, that'll be after the pregnancy, so it's not really a baby shower, right? Whatever it may be, make dua for the child. Okay? Use it as an opportunity to make dua for a child. Alright. Any questions on that before I go to circumcision? Circumcision will make you all forget everything I just talked about. Yeah. After the name of the malaika, the names of the angels. Yeah, so you should not, naming a daughter Malak would not be something that's, I'm not saying haram, but it's definitely under dislike. After the names of the malaika, Imam al-Qayyim rahimahullah said some of the scholars had reservations with that because none of the Sahaba named their kids like Jibreel and stuff like that. Some of the Sahaba didn't. None of the Sahaba did it, so he said perhaps they didn't like to name after an angel. Perhaps, but it's not haram. Okay. Yeah.
You have to give a date.
If you forget what?
You have to give them a date or you didn't know about it.
If you forgot to give them a date, just go home and just take a date and corner them and stuff it in their mouth and say, we're doing the sunnah now. No, so it's just sunnah. It's not public. You don't have to do anything.
Just let them taste it, right? Just
Yeah. Don't put the date in their mouth entirely. Just let them taste the date. Sister. Yes, sister. Yeah, go.
I had a question. What if you have a name for someone in the Quran and you have it in Arabic, but then in English it's a different name? Is it okay to call them the name?
Yeah, sure. So calling Abraham, for example, right?
Abraham.
Abraham is in the Quran. One of the ways of reading, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Abraham in Shu'bah, and so Abraham's in the Quran. It doesn't matter in what dialect you say the name. Yes, you can name them. In fact, you can name them purely, you could choose to name your kids in any name whatsoever. And in fact, by the way, when converts come to Islam, like your name is Sister Nicole, right? When converts come to Islam, I tell them it's better not to change your name because it takes away the foreign aspect of Islam. Rasulullah ﷺ didn't change Sahaba's names unless they were objectionable when they became Muslim.
What about Eve? Eve?
That's fine.
And her name is
Hawa. Yeah. That's fine. You can name the English name. You can do that. You can absolutely name them by the English name of the Prophet. Yes.
For the baby to be washed before giving an adhan, or sometime before baby?
Should you wait for the baby to be washed? I don't know. I like rushed. It's like, let me do it that in her ear. The sooner the better. It's not a requirement that you have to do it like right when it's coming fresh out of the stomach and that kind of stuff. But the sooner the better. Sisters, yes.
So, traditionally, it's important to be family Bayan, almost necessary to name the kids
Well, the naming of Sayyid is deceiving because everybody is a Sayyid, and it's supposed to mean that you're a descendant of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That's why people do Sayyid, but I personally doubt that everyone named Sayyid is a descendant of the Prophet ﷺ. But it's okay. Make your parents happy. It's alright. You don't have to. Just do what you got to do. I personally tell it's good to name your kids after your parents too. It really, subhanAllah, makes them really happy when you do that. If there's nothing wrong with your parents' names, it's good to name your kids after your parents too. Brother Munir, last question, and then I go back to talk.
Knowing the gender before is there any meaning on that?
Knowing the gender before the baby's born? No, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm personally one of those people. I told my wife, I was like, look, I don't want to wait a day later when we know when the gender is able to be determined. I want to know. I want to prepare myself mentally. So, alhamdulillah, we knew the gender very early. All right, I'm going to go back to the topic. Now we go into circumcision. The reason why I'm not going to give a break now is because Asr's at 4:30, so we're going to break at like 4:20, 4:25 anyway. Are you guys okay if we continue, or do you want a 5-minute break? Okay, you guys are okay if we continue, right? All right, circumcision. It's a tense topic, okay? Number one, circumcision for boys is between sunnah and fard. Either sunnah or fard according to the scholars. It's either recommended or mandatory. Okay? Ibrahim alayhi salam, as we know, was the one who was given the sunnah. Ibrahim alayhi salam, and this is there in Bukhari and Muslim, circumcised at the age of 80. And that's why Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, for example, said that it is fard. Okay, that it was Imam Ahmad's opinion that it was fard, and he was the only one that held that opinion from the 4 Imams. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu had a saying that is very, very, very very extreme, and not extreme in the sense like we're calling him wal'iyadu billah, an extremist or something of that sort, but the ulama considered it very exaggerated. He said that if a person is not circumcised and there's no salah and no hajj for them. So he went to, but they said he was exaggerating the importance of it. Why? Because tahara is obviously an issue. If a person, purity is an issue if a boy is not circumcised, right? So circumcision is done for tahara. Rasulullah ﷺ included it in the categories of tahara. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah didn't say that, but he quoted Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu on that too, just to say that he thinks it's fard, it was mandatory. And he said, so even Imam Ahmad, who considered it fard, he said if an adult fears for themselves, they don't have to do it. If an adult fears for themselves, okay, they don't have to do it at that point. Alright, the point is tahara, purity, and good hygiene. Okay, that's the point of the circumcision. Okay, because when there's no circumcision, and by the way, it's not hygienic at all. Even totally secular research has shown that it's not hygienic at all when you don't do circumcision. You're talking about urine and filth and all those types of things. Not being prevented effectively. All right. So for the boys, it is sunnah mu'akkada according to the majority. I was just mentioning Imam Ahmad's opinion just to show you how emphasized it is. There's a brother who became, Sheikh Muhammad al-Arifi was telling a story. He said that there was a brother someone who became Muslim, and as soon as he became Muslim, there were some foreign students, and they told him right away, we got to go get you circumcised tomorrow. He's like, are you crazy? He's like, tomorrow, first thing in the morning, you have to go get circumcised. And he said, I don't want to be Muslim then. He said that they said to him then if you go to a Muslim country, we're going to cut your head off. So he said, what kind of deen do you have that if you enter it or you leave it, something's getting cut off? Like, what is that? What is it about your religion? So it's something that is sunnah mu'akkada according to most of the scholars. Fard according to Ahmad rahimahullah. Now, many scholars said the circumcision should not be delayed beyond 7 days. Okay? Should not be delayed beyond 7 days. It's on the basis of a weak hadith. And that weak hadith, please don't trip over the camera. Please don't trip over the camera. Alhamdulillah, there's tape there. Alright, it's on the basis of a weak hadith that Rasulullah ﷺ circumcised Al-Hasan al-Hussein when they were 7 days old. That hadith is not authentic, but some of the scholars said that it's best. Okay. Imam Ibn Qudama rahimahullah, he said that Ahmad said that even though you don't have to, there's nothing that textually binds you to circumcise a child before 7 days, he said the earlier the better because it's easier on them. So the earlier you can do the circumcision, you don't have to wait till 7 days. The earlier the better. Obviously we know that it's less painful in that regard. And Nawawi rahimahullah said that the time when it becomes obligatory is after puberty. When it becomes obligatory, at that point, to him, again, it's necessary. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, who was a Hanbali, who follows the school of Imam Ahmad, he said that it's obligatory before puberty because the obligation is upon the guardian, not the child. So if a person reached puberty and it wasn't done, then they, at that point, have the choice, if you will, if they fear for themselves and things of that sort. Alright? Now, I want to talk about female circumcision for a moment. Why? Because there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding it. Not because I'm encouraging it in any way whatsoever. But because of our ignorance on the topic, Islamophobes have capitalized on our ignorance of our own text in regards to female circumcision. Particularly my Sheikh Hatim al-Hajj, who is practicing, one of the highest ranked physicians in this country, also a mufti, a PhD in Sharia. SubhanAllah, because, Pamela Geller and her group actually targeted him and said that he was a pediatrician, that he supports female genital mutilation. And the Muslims didn't stand up for him. He never said that. He did not support it at all. He covered the text which talks about female circumcision, what it means in Sharia, and because of that it cost him his job and his medical license. Okay? So it's important for us to know, and the Islamophobes, you know, and when I posted that, by the way, I posted on Facebook, I remember I was getting all these comments about, you know, oh, we're against that anyway. You know, who does he think he is in talking about that? As far as what female circumcision means, now first and foremost, understand female genital mutilation is haram. No doubt about that. Okay? So as far as female circumcision is concerned, within the books of fiqh, it is between mubah, allowed, and sunnah, mustahab. Alright? Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani radiallahu anhu, rahimahullah, he said that there's all of the hadith that talk about it are weak. So there's no strong hadith about it. And most of the scholars considered circumcision sunnah for the men only, and they considered it allowed for women. Now, what the Prophet ﷺ did allow, and what would be considered female circumcision for the Prophet ﷺ, is not removing anything from the clitoris itself, but rather from the foreskin. And the Prophet ﷺ made that very clear. Therefore, it's not mutilation. It does not harm the woman at all. It does not harm the girl at all. Okay? And in fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics, when they wrote on the topic from their journal, they said that this, which is called the ritual nick, which is trimming from the skin, but not from the clitoris itself, they said that it's no more of an alteration than ear piercing. It doesn't hurt the person at all. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ allowed. The Prophet ﷺ did not allow any form of mutilation or taking from it itself. And in fact, the reason why this is predominant in one madhab. It's predominant in the Shafi'i madhab. Not because Imam Shafi'i held this opinion, rahimahullah ta'ala, okay, which is actual genital mutilation. It happens in North Africa and it's predominant in his madhab. It's because it was a custom from the pharaohs. Okay? It's pharaonic custom to actually remove female genital mutilation. And when the school of an Imam Shafi'i developed, obviously sometimes the deen doesn't alter the custom alters the deen. So the custom took what Imam Shafi'i said, which was that was sunnah, to do the ritual nick, and they applied it to that. And that's why you have a problem, a legitimate problem, which we do speak out against, of female genital mutilation in the Middle East, particularly in North Africa in some areas. Okay? But it's not from the deen, has nothing to do with Islam. It's not sunnah, and it's not even mubah, genital mutilation. And actually, even the circumcision itself, which is the ritual nick, is just mubah, so you don't have to try to do it in America in any way whatsoever. Alright? So just for Islamophobes, if someone asks you about that, I know it's not even an issue here because no one does that over here anyway. Alright. Well, we do have some viewers from the Middle East though. Alright. Now the aqiqah. Fard or sunnah? Aqiqah. Okay? The majority says sunnah. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah says it's mandatory. Because Rasulullah ﷺ said the child is rahina, is a captive until the aqiqah is performed. Okay, which means that all the blessings that come with the child are held, as the scholar said, until the aqiqah is performed. The aqiqah is necessary. Most of the scholars said sunnah mu'akkada. Imam Ahmad, Hassan al-Basri, and Ata, they said even if you're an old man and it wasn't done for you, they said we've known some of the Salaf who did it for themselves. They just did a aqiqah for themselves, just to do it for themselves. Samura ibn Jundub, he says that Rasulullah ﷺ said every child is in pledge for his aqiqah, which should be slaughtered on his behalf on the 7th day, and he should be shaved and given a name. So the aqiqah cannot be done before 7 days. Okay? It should be done preferably on the 7th day or after the 7th day. On the 7th day or after the 7th day. Aisha radiallahu anha says if you can't do it on the 7th, do it on the 14th or do it on the 21st. Alright, that's the best, is to do it within that same equation. But any time after the 7th day is fine. Alright? There are no specific portions, according to the majority, in the aqiqah the way there are in udhiyah. So it's not like you have to designate 1/3 for charity, 1/3 for as a gift and 1/3 for yourself. They say there is no specific portions in aqiqah for the most part. Some of the scholars said just out of qiyas, it's good to follow that same equation though anyway. In essence, make sure that there's a portion of your aqiqah that goes to sadaqah. Alright, make sure that there's a portion that goes to sadaqah or give something in sadaqah as a result. Can you just give charity instead of doing aqiqah? Can you just give charity and just call it a day? What do you guys think? No. Okay. So the aqiqah still can take place, but you can have someone else do the slaughter for you. So in any country, whatever it is, if you want to appoint someone to do the aqiqah for you, that's fine. All right? Yeah, so you can feed people from the aqiqah, you can give it in charity, you can do those types of things. It's fine. So you can designate the portions as you want. Obviously, make a share of it as sadaqah, no matter what. Right? That's my next topic. Why is it 2 sheep for a boy and 1 for a girl? And by the way, 2 sheep for a boy, 1 for a girl. There are camels, cows, goats. This is all allowed. Okay? Camels, cows, and goats. I know some people like to do goats. So it can be 2 sheep for a boy. It should be 2 sheep for a boy, 1 for a girl. And you can give extra, so it's not like you're limited to that. So you can slaughter more. All right? Don't be stingy. If you're having an aqiqah, you know, and you got a bunch of people coming, don't just slaughter 1 sheep. Do your best to accommodate. You know? But you can do more as extra. Okay? Now, what's the difference? Why 2 for a boy and 1 for a girl? Most of the ulama, their reasoning for that, they said that it's the share of inheritance of the son and the daughter. So as simple as that. The share of the son is twice as much as the daughter. Has nothing to do with gender, because the mother and the father, you guys attended hopefully the inheritance lecture last night. Mother and father, what's their share? 1/6 and 1/6, right? They both get the same share. It has nothing to do with gender. But the boy, the assumption here with the 2 and the 1 is that the boy is going to be the one that's going to have to provide for the family. If it's not that way, then the equation does not apply. Then the girl is given more to accommodate and things of that sort. So this, and by the way, Islam was the first religion to assign inheritance to women, period. The Bible does not assign any inheritance to women. Alright? No religion before Islam ever assigned inheritance to women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that to the woman, and the woman does not have to spend on her family from that. It's just for her. Whereas the man is mandated to spend, okay, upon the women of the household. Again, if the equation changes, then it's taken into account. But the aqiqah, most of the scholars, they said it's the same way as the inheritance. 2 for the son, 1 for the daughter. And interesting fact, and subhanAllah, this is just, I noticed this also. Rasulullah ﷺ, when he slaughtered for Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, he only slaughtered 1 for each. Perhaps some of the ulama said that the Prophet ﷺ you don't inherit from the Prophet ﷺ. Right? The inheritance of the Prophets all goes to sadaqah. Rasulullah ﷺ only slaughtered 1 for Al-Hasan and Hussein each, and that's an authentic tradition. Okay? So it has to do with inheritance. Another thing about the aqiqah, it cannot be shared according to Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad, according to Abu Hanifa and some of the Shafi'is. You can share it, but it's better not to if you can afford not to. Meaning, if you can afford, each one does his own. So meaning if there's more than one person that had a child, they shouldn't share the aqiqah. But if there are financial constrictions, things of that sort, obviously, it's sunnah mu'akkadah to them anyway, to those scholars anyway, to Imam Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i. So it's sunnah mu'akkadah to them anyway. So it's a sunnah, so there's some flexibility with the sunnah. But again, only if you can't afford it, it's better to do it for yourself. Whenever you slaughter, you say, Bismillah, Allahumma hadha minka walak. In the name of Allah, oh Allah, this is from you and for you. Hadihi aqiqatu fulan. This is the aqiqah of so-and-so. So you'd mention the name of the child. That's just the sunnah. The only requirement for the aqiqah to be valid is the intention. Okay? If the intention is there, it counts as aqiqah. So you don't have to call up a charity organization and say, I donated this aqiqah. Are you sure you slaughtered in the proper name? The intention has to be there, even if the name is not mentioned. Okay, the intention has to be there. Also, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, also the animal should be free from defects. So just like the udhiyah, the animal should not have defects, obvious defects, that's going to be sacrificed. And it's recommended to be of age, 6 months and older. Okay, it's just like the udhiyah. Again, out of qiyas, out of analogy. The same restrictions of the udhiyah, it's better to apply them to the aqiqah. Also, Aisha radiallahu anha said that the aqiqah should be judulan, which means the bone should not be broken on the aqiqah, on the animal that's been slaughtered. Only the joints would be broken. So you would serve it in a way, and there's no reasoning, it's just to follow the sunnah. Aisha radiallahu anha said that when the Prophet ﷺ did the aqiqah, he didn't break the bones of the animal, just from the joints. So people would take from the meat, but they would not break the bones themselves. Okay. She also says radiallahu anha, that in the days of Jahiliyyah, when people would slaughter an animal and the reason why I'm mentioning this hadith is because some people do this custom, and it's from the days of Jahiliyyah. Said when people would slaughter an animal on behalf of the newborn baby, they'd take a piece of cotton and take the blood of that animal and they'd rub the baby's head with it after shaving it. This is still done in some Muslim countries, unfortunately. Now Aisha, it's disgusting too, right? I heard someone say ew. Alright? Aisha radiallahu anha said it's a practice of Jahiliyyah. Okay, so there's no rubbing the head with blood. That's disgusting. Okay. Another ruling here is, can it be combined with the udhiyah? So for example, it's Eid al-Adha, you have to slaughter an animal anyway. Can you combine the intention of aqiqah with udhiyah? According to Imam Ahmad and Imam Abu Hanifa, yes, and also Imam Hassan al-Basri, they said because the intention of the udhiyah and the aqiqah is the same, it's to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's to sacrifice on behalf of the family. According to the Malikis and the Shafi'is, it has to be separate. Another ruling on the aqiqah, it is best to make your aqiqah open to the public. Because Rasulullah said the worst, and this is Sahih Muslim, the worst food is the food of the walima to which the rich are invited to the exclusion of the poor. Okay? You should not make your aqiqah specific. It's good to just serve it, for example, in a masjid or in an open gathering. Don't exclude people from the aqiqah that devoids it barakah, that devoids the feast of barakah. Even weddings, by the way. You don't just invite people that you think are going to pay up. You open your wedding as much as you can. Funny thing about that, I made my wedding open to people, had it announced in the khutbahs and stuff like that. And even with that, some people were really offended. They said, I thought we'd get a personal invitation. I said, come on guys. I came back from Hajj 5 days before my wedding. Alright, shaving the head and giving the charity, giving the sadaqah of that. Shaving the head of the boy is sunnah by consensus. Sunnah in accordance with all of the schools, it's sunnah to shave the head of the boy. Also on the 7th day is most preferable. Okay, but it can be any time after the 7th day, it doesn't have to be the 7th day. For the girl, according to the majority, it's also sunnah to shave the head of the girl. According to Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and this is the opinion I follow personally, that there is no authentic hadith about shaving the head of the girl. He said that the only hadith, which is that Fatima radiallahu anha shaved the head of Kulthum and Zainab, is a weak hadith. It's mursal. And actually some of the Malikis acted in accordance with that, because Imam Malik narrated that hadith, so some of the later scholars of the Maliki school, they acted in accordance with that. They said Imam Malik gave that ruling on the basis of that hadith. So like Ibn Abdul Barr and others, they said also the girl's head is not to be shaved. Because Imam Ahmad rahimahullah said the default ruling is that the woman's hair is not to be cut short or shaved. And so there's nothing to say otherwise. There's no authentic narration to say otherwise. So Imam Ahmad personally did not like, he actually considered it makruh, dislike to shave a girl's head. The later Hanbali said it's mubah, it's permissible to shave the girl's head. But it's not like shaving the head of the boy. That's what the later scholars of the Hanbali school said, and that's the most balanced opinion. Okay, that you know what, you can if you want to, especially I know a lot of people say if you shave then the roots grow stronger, things of that sort. You can, but it's not like shaving the head of the boy. Whenever you do shave the head, what should you do with the hair? Give its weight in charity in silver. Give its weight in silver in charity. Now, does that mean you actually have to take the hair, put it into a scale, weigh it, and then try to see what the silver rate is and give it away? No, you can just give, it's literally like $2-3 of charity, sadaqah. It's symbolic in its nature. You don't have to sit there and weigh anything. Okay, but you should give some sadaqah, some charity as a result. Okay, you don't actually have to weigh the hair. Alright, it's just a small price of charity. It's a sign of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah said in Sahih Muslim, you start with the right, you finish with the left. Okay, if you're shaving the head of the child, you start with the right, you finish with the left, and you would just say Bismillah before you start. A barber can also do it if you don't want to do it. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with a barber doing it. Read it upon them. Alright, and even making the Adhkar al-Layl, okay, al-Sabah wal-Masa, making the morning and evening remembrances, reading them on your children. Okay? Until, as the scholars say, until they're old enough to learn and recite them for themselves. So until your kids Even when they're young babies, until they're old enough to where they can repeat, all right, and they can start to read for themselves and read those dua for themselves, you should make that dua on them. You should read the last 3 quls, and you should read the morning and evening remembrances, but especially the last 3 quls, morning and night. Every time you put your kid to sleep, rub your hand over them, read those 3 surahs over them, because it's a means of protection. Rasulullah ﷺ also used to teach us to say upon our infants and upon our children, وَعِيذُكُمَا بِكَلِمَاتِ اللَّهِ التَّامَّاتِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ وَهَامَةٍ وَمِنْ كُلِّ عَيْنٍ لَامَةٍ. That I seek, the same way the mother of Maryam made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the shaitan. وَعِيذُكُمَا, you in particular, so you're making dua for the child, from the shaitan and from every evil eye and harm, and one who wishes harm on you. So reading that dua, again, Fortress of the Muslim dua that you make for your children, just look it up. Alright, the topic of urine also comes up. Is urine najas or is it not najas? Is urine najas for the child? The boy and the girl, najas means impure. The boy and the girl, the najas is impure. But Rasulullah ﷺ made an exception for the boy's urine, that you don't have to change the cloth. You can just sprinkle it. Sprinkle water on the area that the urine came on. Why? Because the boy's urine is a lot more wild and it goes a lot more places than a girl's urine does. So it was a concession, but the condition for that is that the boy has to be unweaned. He has to be breastfeeding, and the only thing he's getting is milk. Once the boy starts eating anything other than milk, that concession is lifted. But it was to make it easy. Again, in that khutbah, that awesome khutbah that I was telling you about that I heard in the Middle East, the scholar was saying that from the fada'il, from the virtues of men over women, is that their urine is not impure. I was like, are you serious? Yeah, so it's because, obviously a boy will reach many more places and a boy's more wild. And I've had this confirmed by mommies like you, who have confirmed to me that boys' urine is a lot worse than girls' urine in terms of where it goes and stuff like that. So Rasulullah, it's still najas, the hukum hasn't changed, but Rasulullah said you could simply sprinkle water on the area. You don't have to sit there and try to find every place that the urine touched and things of that sort. Alright? Now, in the last 20 minutes, inshallah, we're doing good on time actually, and then we'll do Q&A after Asr. The topic of breastfeeding. Alright, Rasulullah mentioned, in the hadith where Rasulullah mentioned that the angels took him and he saw some of the punishments of the people. Amongst the people that he saw punished were women who denied their children milk, breast milk. Those who denied their children. Okay? So it's haram to deny your children from them. Okay? Even if you don't feel like it's haram to deny your children that right. That's one of their rights upon you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ ثَلَاثُونَ شَهْرًا. That the carrying of the child and the breastfeeding term is 30 months. And subhanAllah, there's a big rahmah in that, because there was a woman at the time, Uthman radiallahu anhu, that had a child at 6 months. And some of the people assumed that she committed adultery. She got married, and she had, how do you have a child in 6 months? So Ali radiallahu anhu, he made the excuse for her. He said, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ ثَلَاثُونَ شَهْرًا. That his carrying and his breastfeeding term, the child's breastfeeding term, is 2 years. Okay, so 2 years is 24 months, and 6 months is how long the baby has to be inside. So in essence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a minimum, a baby typically will not survive if it is born under 6 months. So that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Okay, so the breastfeeding term is 2 years. The breastfeeding, but I'll explain that in a moment before you guys get a little upset about that. Alright, just for the hukum on breastfeeding, also breastfeeding within 2 years, within the first 2 years, on 5 separate occasions, establishes the relationship. In the sense that if a child is adopted, for example, and they're under 2 years old and they're breastfed more than 5 times, or if you breastfeed your niece or your nephew or whatever it is, then you become the mother, and your husband becomes the father for all, in terms of all legal rulings and things of that sort. So you become mahram in that way. The husband becomes mahram and things of that sort. So it actually has legal implications there. So it's not good for people to just be breastfeeding right and left. Right? 5 times breastfeeding within 2 years, within the first 2 years, makes the child the son or the daughter of that woman. Okay? It's a right of the baby upon the mother, as we said. It's permissible for anyone to breastfeed, Muslim, non-Muslim. It's permissible for anyone to provide that breast milk to breastfeed. But the Sahaba hated that an unrighteous woman would breastfeed their children. So even like when they had wet nurses, if they weren't able to provide, they'd look for a woman of righteousness. Even though there is no legal implication there. Alright, but they'd look for a woman of righteousness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the breastfeeding term in Surah Al-Baqarah as 2 years also. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Liman arada, whoever wants to, complete the term of al-rida'a, complete the term of breastfeeding. Alright? What does that mean? Breastfeeding is a right of the child upon the mother for 2 years. And if the mother cannot provide, if the mother is not able to provide breast milk, the scholars said it's the right of the child upon the father to hire a nurse who can nurse the child. So it's an absolute right of the child for those 2 years. And by the way, the World Health Organization, this is amazing. The World Health Organization, in their report that was released in 2011, they said that the optimal time to breastfeed a child is 2 years. You didn't quote the Quran or anything like that. This is the best amount of time, the best term to breastfeed your child for is 2 years. Now, within those 2 years, does it have to be exclusively breast milk? No. Okay? So the ulama said you can start to wean the child off by mutual consent after 6 months. Some said after 8 months. The point is that you can start to give them solids. The point is you're giving them their nutrition, you're developing them, and you're not forbidding them from that breast milk. Okay, so you can start to wean them off. It doesn't have to be an exclusive breastfeeding diet. It doesn't have to only be that for those 2 years. Alright? But it is certainly healthy for the child. It's good for the child. Medical research has shown that. And by the way, many children die every single year. Last year's report, I read this online from the World Health Organization. Last year, 46,000 babies died because they used formula instead of breast milk. There's something that just cannot replace what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put, for the child. Now, if you have to use formula, and those types of things, that's a different story. But to just opt for formula, you should try your absolute best to nurse the child. Okay? You should try to exert every effort to nurse the child. It has been shown formula does not give the child what breast milk gives the child. It's as simple as that. Okay? And can breastfeeding be done more than 2 years for the child? Can it be done more than 2 years for the child? Yes, okay? It can be. In fact, I've heard from, I always ask my parents mention this to me, that some of the smaller villages in Palestine, for example, someone will breastfeed their children, till 4 or 5 years. Subhanallah. And my dad was very embarrassed about how long, when I found out how long he was breastfeeding. But I'm like, my dad's a genius. So, mashallah, tabarakallah. He's just a genius in everything. Like, I consider him an all-around alim. If you mention anything to him, he has, like, why do you know this? Why do you know about this topic, right? Mashallah. Because there's really something special about the quality of the milk that the mother has for the child. Alright? Again, fasting. You can fast. Rasulullah ﷺ gave you an excuse not to fast. But here, in breastfeeding, it's different than with the pregnancy. If you're still able to provide a healthy supply of milk and you can fast, and it's not exhausting, it's not causing over fatigue, then you should fast. So you can really alternate the days here, 2 days a week, whatever it is, 3 days a week even. You can even make up what you missed during your pregnancy. Alright, the last topic here is nifas, postnatal bleeding. Okay? So the woman during her postnatal bleeding, in her postnatal period, is excused from prayer and fasting. Okay? Again, she should make up fasting at her own pace. She cannot fast at this time. It's not like pregnancy and breastfeeding where she has the option. She cannot fast at this time. And in essence, with the nifas, okay. And by the way, there's a huge rahmah in this. What they call postnatal depression, postnatal blues, and that kind of stuff. It really does exist. It's scientific. Brothers, we should know this. Women are just depressed when they have children. Okay. It's scientific. They're depressed for some time after they have the child. It's subhanAllah. It's real. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for them, from excusing them from prayer and from fasting in that regard. You can still make dua. You can still read Quran. Okay? You still are able to pray in terms of supplication and invocation, read Quran and things of that sort. The only thing, of course, is that you're excused from the 5 daily prayers. There are 3 stages of nifas, or that are discussed within the realm of nifas. Before delivery, during delivery, and after delivery. Okay? The Shafi'is consider only the bleeding that comes out after delivery as nifas, as postnatal blood. Alright? The Hanafis and the Malikis consider the bleeding that comes out during and after delivery as part of the nifas. So during the delivery also as part of the nifas, and after the delivery. Alright? And some of the scholars from the Hanbali school considered the bleeding that would take place a few days even before the delivery, and so they said up to 3 days before, as part of nifas. Okay? According to the Jumhur, the majority, any blood that comes out before the delivery for sure is not nifas. Okay? Any blood that comes out before the delivery is not part of nifas. Alright, so it's the postnatal period after you've delivered. Now, how long is the nifas? How long is the nifas? I already mentioned it, didn't I? 40 days. This is important to know. What if you're bleeding more than 40 days? What do you do? 42 days, 43 days. What do you do? Do you stay not fasting and praying, or do you start praying and fasting? Okay. Now, according to Imam Ahmad and Imam Abu Hanifa, and this is the most correct opinion, Wallahu ta'ala alam, in terms of the narrations. We have a shortage of time, so I can't really go into detail. Anything after 40 days is istihada, it's just other blood. So 40 days is the maximum period of your nifas. Okay, it's the maximum period of your nifas. The only way that it wouldn't be considered the maximum period of your nifas is if it coincides with the hayd, if it coincides with your regular scheduled period, okay, menstrual cycle, then you would consider it that. You do your best judgment. Okay, and this was also the opinion of Abdullah ibn Mubarak, Ishaq, Sufyan al-Thawri, At-Tirmidhi, others. And there's a very clear hadith in that regard. Abu Dawood narrates from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha that we used to not regard the discharge, brownish and yellowish discharge after the tuhur, after the end of the period, as being of any significance. So it was just considered istihada, it was just considered other blood. Alright? So 40 days is how long the nifas lasts, no matter what. Alright? Inshallah ta'ala, with that, I hope, did you guys find this beneficial? Learned, inshallah? Okay, alhamdulillah, I hope, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this beneficial. Before I go to Salat al-Asr and Q&A, those of you who are attending online and those of you who are also here, a few things. Number one, if you notice, this was a free class. Alhamdulillah, we made it free. We have over 1,000, we have 1,300 viewers online. Alhamdulillah, we have many viewers online. Usually for a day seminar, it would be $20, $30, $10, whatever it is. We wanted to make this free and open, and we're just counting on everyone, inshallah ta'ala, to support this organization, to support Islamic Learning Foundation of Texas, so that we can continue to have these programs. So I encourage everyone to, inshallah ta'ala, donate whatever you can. Whatever the value of the seminar you got, or you felt is, if you want to donate something, it would be very appreciated. Again, I'm counting on everyone to do with your part. We just wanted to make this open. Wallahi, I was like, you know what, let's just make it free, inshallah, and there's more barakah in it. There's so many couples and things of that sort that are in need of this. So inshallah, support the organization so we can continue to have these programs. The link is also at the YouTube stream, so you can share this with everyone. Do me a favor, honestly, this is a favor to me, because I hope there's some benefit in this, and I know a lot of people are ignorant about these types of matters, not out of malice or not intentionally, but just don't know about these things. So please share this with as many people as you can, inshallah. And also, I'm going to have a class that's starting online on February 12th, inshallah, every Tuesday. It's going to be a 4-week class on the tafsir of Surah Al-Ahqaf. It's going to be February 12th at 8 p.m. Starting February 12th at 8 p.m. every Tuesday night, inshallah, at www.ilmflix.com, ILMFLIX, or ilftexas.org. Both of them go to the same website. Also, for those of you that are in Houston, there's going to be a class. You can find more information about some of the classes in Houston. There's one on March 9th called The Station of the Divine. I believe that's on Madarij al-Salikin by Dr. Ovamir Anjam. On March 16th, here in Dallas, inshallah, we're going to have a class called Marked for Greatness. Marked for Greatness, how many of you guys attended the first Tafsir Surah Maryam I did? Not many of you. If you subscribe online for an Inflix membership, which is $10 a month, you get access to all the previous classes. So I did the tafsir of the first 40 ayahs of Surah Maryam, and I'm doing the next 25 inshaAllah ta'ala, which talks about marked for greatness, the characteristics of the Anbiya and the Prophets. So that'll be somewhere in Dallas. Do we determine the location? At Richardson. Okay, it'll be in Richardson inshaAllah. That's good for me, I don't have to go anywhere. Alright, in Richardson inshaAllah, March 16th. Just keep up inshaAllah ta'ala for more information. And there's a lot of content, alhamdulillah. Again, we want to open this up to the public. We want people to benefit as much as possible. And we want to be able to keep these projects going. So please, inshallah ta'ala, follow us, inshallah, on online, on Facebook. Follow the organization ILF Facebook page. You know, keep up with classes, inshallah. And hopefully, by the way, Sheikh Nadeem, you know, how this all came about, we were at an Imam's meeting. And I saw Imam Nadeem, what was it, on Tuesday? On Tuesday. So I was telling Imam Nadeem, I was like, you know, I'm in town this weekend, how about we do a class on, you know, pregnancy and newborns and stuff like that. And I knew Epic is the place, because mashallah, the sisters here are mashallah very active, you have a reputation, so keep up that reputation, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, I really want to thank you all for the turnout. Online, you know, it's only 3 days of advertising, alhamdulillah. Over 1,000 people benefited from this class, inshallah. So jazakumullah khairah. Those of you who are online, keep in touch, keep online, inshallah, after Salat al-Asr, which is in 15 minutes, inshallah. Asr is in 10 minutes. After Salat al-Asr, we'll be doing an open Q&A, inshallah. So we're not done yet. I just wanted to mention those things for those that have to go after Salat al-Asr, or those that are logging off now. So jazakumullah khair. We'll go ahead and we'll take a break. Is there something? Yes. Should we take questions now, Imam? Sure. One question, inshallah, and then we'll take a break, inshallah, for Asr.
About delivery. Have you come across anything about underwater delivery or water delivery?
Underwater delivery, it's all permissible. There's nothing to prohibit it. Anything that soothes the woman is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Because al-aslu fil ashya' ibaha, everything's permissible unless it's proven to be impermissible. So, inshallah, we'll come back, we'll take questions. Please stay, inshallah. After Salat al-Asr, ask your questions. Jazakumullah khairan to all of you for attending, though. Barakallah feekum, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
ILF taxes the word with the online lecture.
Yeah, we can do that.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Souls welcome Musad al-Khalal, straight in lines. Come close, inshallah. There's a gap here in the middle of the back. Come close, inshallah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, Jazakumullah khair for those who have come, and also from my side, on behalf of the entire EPIC management, I want to say Jazakumullah khair to Sheikh Sulaiman and ILF for bringing the program here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of you, inshallah. As mentioned earlier and announced prior to Salat, the Q&A session will take place right now, inshallah. So I request all the brothers once again just go back to the same setting. And for the sisters, inshallah, just wait for a knock on the door or something until inshallah before we start. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Most of the questions we get here will cover what people are going to ask online anyway. Sorry. Let's just move this out the way and then we can just look at I think it's frozen. The screen. Want to call them last? Yeah. Access to the session. Great. This one recorded too? Oh, sure.
So sister can start coming in. So Jazakallah khair everyone for joining this event. Just wanted to give a few words about ILF. So ILF probably know, or just want to let everybody know that ILF is a project of ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America. So just like they have other projects like Waaz or ICNA Relief, this is an educational project to educate community, inshallah. And the goal of ILF is to fuse knowledge with service. So inshallah, most of the programs that we provide, they have some practical aspect, as you can see on this one, and that can lead to some action that we can do for the betterment of society. So there are basically two kinds of classes we do. Number one is on-site classes, just like the one that we are attending here. Mostly they are one-day classes, 6 hours. So we did one in Irving Masjid, Surah Maryam Part 1, Great Blessing, and inshallah we'll be doing Part 2 on March 16th in Lecutre Masjid. So we did about 6-7 seminars already, and these seminars are already uploaded to our Inflix portal. That is a monthly subscription, so you can pay $10, and all the seminars that are done are recorded there, and then you can access them anytime. The second part of the educational method is online classes. So we try to do every month. We do one class. It's a 4 weeks class online. Alhamdulillah, we have had about 600 to 500 sometime attendees. And so we do it on different thematic topics. So one of them is Sheikh is doing tafasir of different surahs. So he did Surah Mulk, Surah Hijrat, Surah Ahqaf is coming inshallah on February 13th, and then he also did about Bani Israel, the Chronicles of Bani Israel. So about 6-7 topics we have already done, and we have some more scholars coming and joining the ILF as instructors. One of them is Sheikh Yasir Bridges. Inshallah he will have class in April. Similarly, Dr. Oamir Anjum, who is in political science and Islamic political thought, he will be doing another class in Houston on March 9th. So, and he will be doing online classes also. And another instructor is Imam Khalid Briggs. So he has experience in African American history, and he did a class on Malcolm X. So I'll encourage all of you to go to iloftexas.com, know about our projects, our classes, and if you can subscribe to Inflix, also Inflix subscription. So you can go through ilmflix.com or ilfaccess.com and subscribe to it and get access to the content, inshallah, that is available. Jazakallah khair again. Assalamu alaikum. So we'll have a Q&A session. Sheikh Muhammad Sulaiman and Sheikh Nadeem will be answering questions.
I just wanted to thank also the Masjid and Imam Nadeem, mashallah, the response and for giving us the use of the Masjid and the facility. Alhamdulillah. I haven't known Imam Nadeem for too long, but alhamdulillah, I'm very fond of him. I love him for the sake of Allah. And inshallah, hopefully we'll be doing some things together also. You'll be seeing us doing some things together, inshallah, in the area. So, Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, and Jazakallah khair to the Masjid. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your community, mashallah, is growing and it's vibrant, alhamdulillah. It's, establishing itself as a very active and vibrant community. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah in your community, to allow it to become a center of activity, inshallah. I mean, so do we have questions? Written questions?
Assalamu alaikum. The one question that has come is that what are the rules of making of fasting for women who have consecutive pregnancy and breastfeeding for several years? Generally, what you would do is that you would collect all the days that you have missed out, and as time goes on, whenever you do have the chance, that you will take care of your fasting one day at a time, inshallah. That is, it's based on your own convenience, and there's not a set rule that you have to do it at a particular time of the year. You can do it at any time of the year based on your convenience.
The second question, which is, in our culture, women change their last name after marriage. Is it okay or permissible? No, it's not. In fact, let me mention this, subhanAllah, and it just shows you that we see things through the lens of our culture. I was once doing the lecture on women in Islam at a university, and there was an anonymous woman that was sitting there, and she said, how come in your religion women are just property? I was like, ma'am, can I ask you a question? She said, yes. So are you married? So I was like, yeah. I was like, so what's your last name? She said her last name. I was like, what's your real last name? She's like, what are you talking about? That's my last name. I said, was that your last name before marriage? So she said, no. Obviously, I changed it when I got married. I said, in Islam, it's haram. It's prohibited for a woman to change her name because she's not the property of the man. Why would you change your last name when you get married? Now, we don't think about that in our culture because we don't see, I'm not saying it is chauvinistic per se, because I'm an American too. I grew up in this country. I never thought anything of it. But that's the point. That sometimes we see rulings or we see things that are different in our deen, and it's not meant to disrespect the woman or things of that sort, but we might see it as such because our culture, we naturally have a bias. We naturally have a cultural bias. But Allah Azza wa Jal makes it fard, وَدْعُوهُمْ لِأَبَائِهِمْ, to be called by the names of your families. It is a must. So no, a woman cannot be called by the name of her husband. Can you talk about the middle name of babies, last middle name? Does father's name get to the middle or last name of the baby? If father's name gets to be the middle name, what is the last name for the baby according to Sharia? The only thing, the name of the father has to be somewhere there. So it's usually, traditionally, what it would be is that you would be called by such and such, the daughter or son of so and so, and then the name of your tribe, which fits perfectly with what we do here with three names, right? So the name of your family would be your last name. The name of the father would be the middle name. Something really cool. Sheikh Walid Basyuni has a son named Khalid, so Khalid ibn Walid, and he actually made the middle name bin Walid, which is Khalid ibn Walid. So yeah. So yeah, try to do that, follow that system, inshallah.
I think so. The question, I'm going to try to read the question. I'm very bad sometimes reading people's handwriting. During the delivery, are we supposed to make, I think so, it may be Fajr or Fard prayer, if there's no indication of the baby coming. Generally, as you know, that the Islam is very easy, of course, as the Prophet ﷺ says, ad-deenu yusrun. Salat is something that cannot be skipped out, so the fuqaha have given permission that if it is difficult for you to get off your bed and perform the salat, you can perform the salat on your bed also, if it is difficult. So do keep that in mind. If you look at overall our religion, when it comes to fasting, when it comes to salat, it actually looks after the health of the person. Even when it comes to fasting, if there is any, if your life is in jeopardy, or you know that your health can deteriorate if you will fast, Islam has given the permission that you don't have to fast. So even in salat, when it comes to salat, if you look at if you just study the fiqh of salat, you will learn that if you cannot perform salat standing up, you have the permission to sit down on a chair. If you cannot do it on the chair, if you have to do it on the bed, I mean, you do it on the bed if you have to do. And not only that, but there are chapters in the books of fiqh in terms of salat is as-salatu bil-ima, which is you praying salat with ishara. So this is also allowed.
What are the du'as to recite for young couples who are planning to have children? رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. We can also go through some of the du'as Zakaria alayhi salam made, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Rabbi habli min as-salihin, oh Allah grant me from the righteous, so on and so forth. So you can make du'as from the Quran and things of that sort, but that's the best one for sure. When couples have issues having children after marriage, up to what limit they can consult Islamically? I'm a little confused by the question, because the first part of the question, we're having trouble having kids, and then the second part, there's a limit. Again, the only thing the Sharia prohibits you from is permanent birth control and trying to not have any kids whatsoever. So if you want to have 1, 2, that's fine. But the only thing is not having children whatsoever.
I think the question was how much we can go or pursue to have a child. I think that's the question. We want to know, there are a lot of infertility treatment.
Oh, infertility treatment is fine as long as the men's, and that's a good question, actually I should have covered it in the seminar, I thought about that. As long as the husband's eggs are being used, or the husband is being used in that, as long as it's not a non-mahram or so on and so forth, as long as it's still halal, that treatment, fertility treatment, is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's halal, as long as, again, it's not anyone other than the husband being used.
There's a question that has come, can we use birth control if we plan to perform Hajj? Once again, as mentioned in the seminar, that even the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they would not cut it out of the picture completely of having children, but they would delay it for some reason. In the same way, if you know that you may be going for Hajj and this could become a hindrance, then after that it could be used. But once again, as the Sheikh mentioned earlier, it has to be consensus between both husband and wife, and there should be a mutual understanding between the spouses about this.
Okay, before 4 months, can we have an abortion if we're told the child is going to be deficient? If it's a deformity, yes. If it's something that the child is going to seriously have a serious disorder and things of that sort, and might not even survive. So I mean, look, again, as I said, with these things, you want to consult on it. I'm not telling you this so that when you're faced with a situation, especially with something as critical as this, that you just make up your own decision. No, you go and you ask the imam, you go and you ask a scholar, a qualified scholar, to see that you qualify, to make sure that you qualify. So the general answer is yes, but as far as the severity of that, you need to consult someone who's knowledgeable, who will in turn talk to someone who's knowledgeable in the field of medicine and see, what the severity is. Aqiqah for older person, does it require to shave the head? No. Aqiqah and shaving the head are two separate things. So you don't have to shave your head when you do Aqiqah. Aqiqah is the animal slaughter. It's not the shaving the head, so you're just shaving the head of the kids. Okay? I think that's it. Yes, sister.
Regarding the question before this one, about the abortion, when you go to the gynecologist or physician, they tell you to have a care. I forgot how many months they are, and if we happen to find out it's a Down syndrome baby or anything somewhat abnormal, does it allow us to have that abortion?
Okay, so again, let me go a little bit deeper into the question now. There's a difference between what's permissible and what is the best thing to do in that regard. Raising handicapped children or special education or special needs children is very praiseworthy in Islam. There's a lot of ajr on that. So I'm not saying that you have to or you should, but as far as permissibility is concerned, if it's severe enough to where the child will not be able to function properly, okay, and that's a loose term because the Sharia doesn't specify things where they should not be specified, where it should be case by case. Well, there was no abortion in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, so obviously this is fiqh, contemporary fiqh. This is contemporary fiqh, as Imam Nadim just said too. So I mean, obviously with new situations, that's why you have fuqaha. They use the tradition to try to come up with these answers. So the dalil is what the Prophet ﷺ said about the ruh not being in yet. So therefore, the scholars in general, they used to treat it before the ruh is in it in a different way than it would be treated when the ruh is not inside. So that's what it is. So it's just contemporary fiqh and what the fuqaha said. What I particularly I would recommend to read some of the articles of, I mentioned Sheikh Hatim al-Hajj is my teacher. MashaAllah, very rarely do you find someone who's qualified in his field and qualified in Islamic law. He's a pediatrician, very skilled doctor, was one of Mayo Clinic's doctors. And he's also a PhD in Sharia. He's qualified faqih and mufti. So he's written a lot on these topics. And his PhD actually was on medical ethics and fiqh. So you can just search Hatim al-Hajj. He actually has a website, drhatimhajj.com, where he writes a lot of articles and things of that sort. Hatim, HATEMELHAJ.com. Okay. And he writes some articles on this. We have a brother too, so he's got brother, sister. Yes, brother.
Where did Rasulullah came up with the name of the God? Like, was there any association?
Where did Rasulullah ﷺ come up with the names of his daughters? That's a good question. I don't know. They're all before wahi though. Right. But I'm not sure. Do you have any idea about that? I have no clue. It's a good question though. I'll research it, inshallah. The sister, I think she had the question first. Oh God. Can I answer that? So all the blue eye to ward off hasad, nazar, the eyeliner, the black stuff. Not only is that bid'ah, but it's borderlining shirk, minor forms of shirk. Okay, because consulting a magician, a horoscope, and those types of things, these are haram, and this can actually lead to your salah being invalid and things of that sort, devoid. So. No, and there's no proof for putting ayahs of the Quran on the child. So you don't put any ayahs. You teach your kid Quran and read Quran on your kids, but putting an ayah is not going to do anything on them. Right, so reading and writing ruqyah, but putting like chains and those types of things, there's no basis for that. No eyeliner. If you want them to look cute, you want to put eyeliner, that's fine. But
I mean, I think the sister was asking a question. I mean, I'm quite aware of the culture that generally where we come from, and so the best thing is that, as the Sheikh mentioned, reading the Quran. This is what the Prophet he did, and this is the best form of. This is the best route to go with.
I had a question about what so when the Prophet came, even the Prophet was given to someone to be president. Now we know. So, like, I had a friend who she had a baby months ago, and she asked me, she said, well, my neighbor can't make milk, so I'm not anyway, about me.
So, selling breast milk. Now, Paying a wet nurse is fine. So on the issue here, the issue of contention is you have to know where the milk is coming from. You have to be very clear and aware, and it would establish. So for example, the scholar said the 5 occasions that make a person mahram, even if they're not sucking directly from the breast, if they're taking the milk, but it's still sessions of milk, so it still establishes the relationship. The wet nurse is it's not about rights as much as it's about awra, that there is no there's awra obviously, but the mahram, he's become a total mahram to her, and she doesn't wear hijab, she doesn't have to wear hijab in front of him, and for all practical purposes she's like a mother to him. Now Rasulullah treated, when he saw his former wet nurses, he treated them, like his mother. He treated them with the best honor and things of that sort. So you can derive from that, obviously, you owe them, they have rights upon you, but do they have the rights that your actual mother would have on you? No. But you want to add on to that?
No, I mean, even one time there is mentioned that Al-Halima Sa'diyya, when she came, one time she did come, and the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw her coming, he actually told the Sahaba that move, and he laid down a sheet, and he actually gave reference to Halima Sa'diyya as his own mother also. So, because what they go through in taking care of a child. Yes. And also Ayman also.
I think it's 5. That's 5 now. We'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Yes, sister, go.
I wanted to contribute that those chromosomal disorder tests are typically at 12 weeks and 21 weeks. My question is, I'm not familiar with the practice of Ruqya. Is that just as simply as when I'm making my morning and afternoon adhkar, my baby is with me? Or is there more to it?
Okay, so reading Ruqya on your baby, basically, right? You can read Ruqya on your baby. Is this the same question?
No.
Oh, okay, it's a different question. Reading Ruqya on the baby, you would simply pass your hand over the baby as you read. Morning and evening remembrances.
What do you mean passing, like I raise my hand?
And demonstrate on the sheikh. Rub your hand on the arm, on the chest, on the face. Rub your hand over the baby. Compassionately. Not like you're trying to get a demon out, we should take a brother now, inshallah. You had your hand, yes.
What is the ruling on baby vomit, and for it to be considered as vomit, means the milk has to be colored? For example, when my son feeds within a minute or two, without some milk, it's just like milk, it hasn't green juice. So it's still vomit.
Honestly, I don't know. That's something I have to ask our doctor. Is that considered as vomit or not?
Yeah.
Once we can determine what exactly it is, then we can put a ruling to that. But that's, I understand what you're saying. That has happened. Yeah.
Is genetic testing the ones that are done at around 5 months? Is that allowed to get done like get genetic testing done?
What are the implications of genetic testing? I read about it.
Is it the test that they ask you to test that would you like to get genetic testing done or not, or you're pregnant? So I'm just trying to know.
What does genetic testing do?
It's chromosomal disorder. Yeah, disorder could be sometimes.
I mean, there's any type of screening or testing that just shows disorders, things. I mean, that's fine. Any type of testing is fine. Yeah. Anything that's not going to harm, the baby is fine. Yeah. I think we'll do 2 more questions. Oh yeah, sure.
How far, for example, in terms of adoption or taking a child in care, if a woman breastfeeds, does that relationship extend to her husband, to her parents?
Great question. Is adoption haram in Islam? No, it's good. Wallahi, it's a sunnah that's being neglected in our community. It really is. Changing the name of the child is what's not allowed. Robbing the child of their identity is what's not allowed. Adoption is good, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ referred to as the one who sponsors, raises an orphan, is like this with me in paradise.
So I'm a big proponent of it, and I think as a community we need to start exploring avenues, especially with all the refugees that come and stuff like that. So what is the solution then? If you get a child that's under 2 years old, yes, breastfeeding the child would make, so let's say it's a girl. If you breastfeed the girl that's under 2 years old 5 times, not only is she your daughter, your husband can see her without hijab even as an adult. She becomes his daughter too. And your sons would be her brothers. Okay? Likewise, a son, if you adopt a boy and you breastfeed the boy. And even if a woman is not naturally producing, so the ulama have said that even if she takes something to induce breast milk, just to fulfill that purpose, that's fine. It's an honorable cause. So it should be done. But it can't be done after 2 years. Okay.
We'll just take one more, and I think the Sheikh can shed some light on this also. This question is actually in reference to something that the husband and wife have something. I mean, it's an issue where they're not agreeing upon. But the question is that if the wife is mentally, physically ready, but the husband is not ready, does not want a child because he thinks. This is sometimes typical, because he thinks that his wife is not responsible and not good enough to be a mother. First of all, that's very wrong to think like that. That just shows that you don't have a lot of I'll skip that right now actually.
It's the right of those from the wife, I guess.
I mean, I don't want to actually, because I didn't read the bottom part, but I'll respond to that separately. But when it comes to these kind of matters, there should be a mutual understanding between the husband and the wife, and they should try to work things out. Remember always that in a marriage, this is something that I've talked about in my khutbahs also, a marriage is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. There has to be there should be mutual understanding in all our matters that we do, and this is what creates a healthy family. A lot of times, unfortunately, from the cultures that we come from, the mentality is that the man says and the wife she has to do it regardless whether she likes it or not. It's a one-way street, and that's not what we see and what we learned from the Prophet ﷺ. He always saw that the Prophet ﷺ, he always took advice from his wives. He always got engaged with his wives. And there was a mutual understanding in so many things. When the Prophet ﷺ was in most dire need, the people who would come to give him advice were his wives. I mean, you look at the story of Hudaybiyah, when the Prophet ﷺ did not know what to do. It was the wife of the Prophet ﷺ who came and gave advice, and that advice actually helped out very much for the Prophet ﷺ. So that's why in all family matters there should be mutual understanding, inshallah. So having said that, if there is any more questions that you can ask, by the way, there are, like for example, the one question that brother did ask about the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. Inshallah, I will be looking, I and the Sheikh will look more into that. There was another question that came up earlier after the first session, which is a very good question, that was asked in regards to the baby and when the ruh or the soul comes in. Inshallah, we'll look into that more. But if there's any other questions that you have, then please do email them, inshallah, and they'll be answered. Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair for everyone to come. Assalamu alaikum.
One quick question.
In the future. Allah making the cause for change. In the future, yeah, it's not but you should know the source for sure.
Even the name, or do I
The name at the least, an identity that can be traced, a person that can be traced, especially if it's enough where it's established. Yeah. That's the best way to deal with it. But even if it's anonymous and it's permissible, you just need to know where it is so you can trace that.
Like, they would have been one thing. Then I care about it. So, if I know that I care,